Welcome to Classic Trials. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we make sense of the law one bite at a time. In this series, we observe and analyze the play-by-play of some of the biggest trials that have shaped the public consciousness of the American judicial system. In this season, we're working our way through the case of California v. Erik and Lyle Menendez. Growing up in Princeton, New Jersey, and then Beverly Hills, California, these young men had everything they could ever want, or so it seemed, until one night on August 20th, 1989, they approached Jose and Kitty Menendez with newly purchased shotguns. Put on trial for murdering their own parents, they claimed self-defense, arguing they were terrorized in their own home by abusive parents until they could take no more. Which argument is more convincing? Come join and see for yourself. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful Monday. I hope you had a good weekend. Those of you in the US, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. Those of you outside of the US, I also hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. Even though you guys may or may not have actually been celebrating. We had a wonderful time in London uh celebrating Thanksgiving. It's funny, we got some lighthearted flack, I should say, from some of our American friends for choosing to go to the UK to celebrate Thanksgiving, especially considering like what Thanksgiving is. So the history of it and everything. But we had a lot of fun. It was wonderful. We love going to the UK, love visiting London. Such a great city. So, but of course, we missed our wonderful fur buddies that we have here at home. And of course, you might notice that we have gone into Christmas season. Oh, I totally forgot. Okay. I often forget to turn on the candles because I don't want to put them on all day because they're battery operated. So I often forget like right before to turn them on. But anyway, Holmes has his lovely Christmas bow tie on. Indy has a wonderful collar and bandana setup. Astra refuses to wear a collar. So the collar that we have originally for Astra is being worn by Maverick, our little foster kitten, who may or may not show up in this stream. She is a bit apprehensive of Indy, understandably so, but she's not as evasive as Astra is. So there's a decent chance she might just show up at some point during the stream today. But anyway, um, wonderful time in London. Great Thanksgiving, and we're happy to get on back to business, right? So what do we got today? We have more Erik Menendez, of course, more cross-examination of Erik Menendez. I don't know the subject matter that it gets into, but it'll be a little bit of a shorter session today because this next portion is like 2 hours long, and of course I pause and I talk and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be probably a little bit shorter than what the last few times have been. Nico Kiski, Kuriyama Haters Anonymous. There is a lot of that. There's gonna be a bit of that today because I anticipate questions will be similar to what we saw last week and the previous week as well. Or was last week the first time that we started the Kuriyama cross examination of Erik? Well, anyway, but so far though, Erik seems to be holding up fairly well under cross-examination. Um, even with some of the questions that have seemed a little odd to me personally. But anyway, but yeah, so far Erik seems to be holding up fairly well, in my opinion. But we've still got quite a ways to go. We've got a lot of sections of Erik Menendez testimony still left to go. So, okay. Let's dive in, shall we? Okay. All right. Here we go. And I don't know if there are and always, as always, any kind of like trigger warning for all of it, because we get into all the things here. So for anyone that is coming in and out, you know, that's a topic that comes up. So if there is anything difficult that comes up, do what you need to do to take care of yourselves. It is not worth it to sit through all of these streams and everything, if it's not good for your mental health. And if you have any questions, I will oh, Debbie, thank you so much for putting this up. And always, also, we've got helplines and stuff for folks that are having a hard time with it. So we've got these that are in the US, UK, Australia, Canada, and more numbers in Germany and Greece. So, we'll be periodically putting that kind of stuff on the screen as well, just for good reminders for folks. And if there are any questions with the testimony as we go on, I will be I'll be checking the chat and everything. If there are questions, I'll save them and address them when I have a chance to. I try to do it when it makes sense, but anyway, it might be immediately, it might be later on in the stream. Depends on how it goes. Okay, all right. With all of that out of the way, let's get started.
Could you state your name again for the record, please?
Erik Menendez.
And I'll remind you that you're still under oath.
Yes, sir.
All right, you may continue your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Menendez, drawing your attention to August 15th, 1989, you had indicated that there was an argument between your mother and your brother on that date.
Yes.
Would you recount for the jurors or the juries what occurred on that day?
My mom and my brother were coming out of the den, and my mom was saying that he didn't need something, and that something to that extent, that it wasn't important. And Lyle was saying, "No, I really need it. It's important. Please, it's not that big of a deal." And my mom just got really in a rage and just ripped his hairpiece off.
Now, when you say your mother got in a rage, what did she do?
She gets to a point where she just explodes, and she just says, "No, you don't need it," and she just ripped it off.
Now, was she angry at that time?
She was angry before that time. She was angry coming out of the room. It was a lot of raising of voices, and then she just sort of went over the edge.
Where were you at this time?
I was in the foyer. I had just come in.
So the argument was occurring in the den.
And the argument was, I suppose it was in the den before I got there, but it was coming out of the den.
Had you just come home?
Yes.
So you came through the front doors?
Yes.
As you approached the foyer, you heard argument.
As I was coming in the door.
As you were coming in the front door?
Yes.
What time was this?
This was in the late afternoon, real late. I'm not sure. It was still light outside.
Approximately what time?
4, 5. I'm not sure.
Now, was this argument loud yelling by your mother and your brother?
No, it was pretty much mostly by my mother, and I guess some by my brother. I'm not really sure.
Did your brother raise his voice at your mother?
In begging for whatever he was begging for at the time, yes.
And did your mother use any profanities?
I don't believe so.
At some point after you heard this argument, did you actually see your mother and your brother?
Well, I saw them immediately as I was coming in the door, or I was just inside the door, and they were coming out of the den when I came in.
As you were entering the door, could you hear them arguing, though?
From outside of the house, no.
But as you entered the front doors, you could hear them arguing.
Yes.
You saw them exiting the den into the foyer.
Yes.
And you actually witnessed this argument.
Yes. The part that took place outside the den.
Okay, and what happened after there was this argument, this exchange, this yelling?
My mother ripped off his hairpiece.
Did you actually see her do that?
Yes.
And your mother was 5'5", correct?
I'm not sure.
She was about a head shorter than your brother?
No.
No? Was she as tall as your brother?
A few inches smaller than my brother.
And your brother's how tall?
I'm not sure.
How tall are you?
I'm about 6 feet. I think he's 5'10" and a half, 5'11". I'm not sure.
Did she get up on her tiptoes to grab his hairpiece off his head?
She didn't need to do that. She just reached up.
Right up to the front of his face to grab his hairpiece?
Yeah. Yes, she just reached up and grabbed it. It wasn't, she's not a lot smaller than my brother. When you look at them, they look about the same size.
I understand that what Kuriyama is trying to do here is to create an image for the jury that she's this little petite person and that her like ability to A, overpower Lyle, and B, maybe even like reach the top of his head seems strange, or it seems unlikely given their like difference in stature. But what Erik is pointing out here is, hey, look, yeah, she was shorter than him, but not by much, Like she was not much shorter than him. And I mean, and if you do think about it, your arm span reaches way higher than your own height. I mean, if she was only a few inches shorter than him, it makes sense that she would be able to reach the top of his head fairly easily. So,
Okay, so your mother's the same size as your brother. So
and also, yeah, Debbie, what you're saying is also correct. Size doesn't matter when it comes to abuse. It is possible for someone to abuse someone that is bigger than them. But what I'm pointing to is this specific instance of Erik saying that Kitty grabbed or ripped the toupee off of Lyle's head. This is Kuriyama's clearly trying to invoke or inject some skepticism into the occurrence of that event. But I don't know, the ways that he's doing it are not necessarily like, it doesn't really introduce any real questions as to the ability of her to do that. All right.
So she didn't have to go on her tiptoe. She just simply reached up to the top of his head and pulled off his hairpiece.
Yes,
And you saw this.
I saw this.
What happened after that?
She threw it up and she threw it back at him toward his stomach and just ran up the stairs.
Now she ran up the stairs?
Yes,
To where?
to her bedroom, I suppose.
And then what happened?
And then Lyle went to his guest house.
And then what happened next?
And then I went over to the guest house to see Lyle.
Was Lyle's head bleeding?
I don't remember.
What was Lyle doing?
Lyle was crying.
Did you tell Lyle to stop crying?
I didn't speak to him inside the main house.
When you went to the guest house?
Oh, you're asking in the guest house?
Yes.
Oh, he was in the bathroom fixing it when I came in.
And at some point he exited the bathroom.
Yes.
Then what happened?
And I told him, I just felt really, really bad for him. I was feeling pretty down myself. And I just told him that, not to worry about that I had always known that he had something done, and it didn't change anything that I felt for him. It didn't change the fact that he was my brother and that I loved him.
Now you told your brother that you loved him, and you stayed with him the rest of that day?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure. I'm right.
Did you stay with him in the guest house that night?
Yes.
Your father was not home that night,
No.
correct? Did you stay in his king-size bed in his upstairs bedroom in the guest house?
That night I did.
You stayed in the bed with him?
Yes.
So you slept the whole night in the guest house?
Yes.
Did you stay up talking
Yes.
the whole night?
What do you mean by the whole night?
Well, did you ever go to sleep that night?
Yes, we did.
Do you recall approximately when you went to sleep?
By the way, that was a good moment by Erik right there, because the meaning of the whole night, how what does one mean when they say the whole night, that someone was up the entire night? Like from sunset to sunrise, they didn't get a single wink of sleep, or were they about awake for most of the night? So for him to stop and say, "What do you mean by that?" is good. That's good. That's a good witness that is A, paying attention, and B, being very deliberate and very specific.
That night?
No, I don't.
So you discussed things about your parents that night, I take it?
Yeah, we discussed pretty much just what was happening in the family, how he was going to talk to Dad, on how things weren't the same anymore.
Okay, what happened the next day, Wednesday, when you woke up?
I don't remember.
You don't remember Wednesday at all?
I don't remember much on Wednesday. I believe I played some tennis in the morning. I don't remember really.
Do you remember what your brother was doing that day?
No.
When you woke up, was he still in the bed with you?
I don't remember.
When you got up to play tennis, who did you play with that day?
I don't remember. I think I just went out and practiced my serve. I'm not really sure.
Do you remember anything about that Wednesday? Anything that you did?
I remember a conversation I had with my brother because that stands out in my mind. But
on Wednesday?
Yes.
When and where was this conversation?
It was in Westwood at a restaurant it was an Italian restaurant. I think it was the Olive Garden. I think it was the Olive Garden.
What time of the day was this?
Sometime after 12, before night. I'm not really sure.
And how was it that you met up with your brother there?
I don't remember. We may have drove together.
Was it just you and your brother?
Yes.
And do you remember discussing anything with him on that day?
Yes.
Did you again discuss how you wanted to get rid of your parents?
No. We discussed how he was hoping that I would be able to go to Princeton with him and how we could be together and how he was going to talk to Dad.
Now, the next day was a Thursday, correct?
Yes.
Now, did you sleep with Lyle that night as well?
Objection for the question, this states the evidence.
Given all of the evidence that we've heard in this case and the kinds of things that the brothers have testified to about their parents' behavior and the things that have gone on under this roof, that is a very loaded way to phrase that. So good objection by Leslie on that, and the judge agreed. So he had to rephrase it. Yeah, interesting.
Did you stay in Lyle's guest house?
Yes, I
that
did.
night? Okay. So you stayed with him on Tuesday night and also on Wednesday night?
I don't know if I stayed with him on Wednesday night. I very well may have, but I know I did on Thursday.
What happened when you woke up on Thursday,
What happened?
17th of August? What did you do? Do you remember anything about that day?
Yes.
What did you do?
I know I had a lesson with my coach in the morning.
How do you know that?
Because I remember Thursday because I remember the anxiety of my dad supposed to come home that day.
And that triggered you to remember that you had a lesson with your coach?
Yes.
And that coach is Mark Heffernan?
Yes.
Do you remember Mark Heffernan testified that he had a lesson with you on Friday, the 18th, the morning of the 18th of August?
Yes, I remember.
Did he have
I'm sorry.
Did he in fact have a lesson with you on August 18th? As
No,
he
he did not.
testified.
No, he did not.
Did he lie to these juries?
No, I think he's mistaken.
And you're correct.
I'm almost certain I'm correct.
You heard your coach, Mark Heffernan, testify that he did have a lesson with you in the morning of Friday, August 18th, correct?
Yes, I heard that.
Okay, so you indicated that you recall that there was a lesson on Thursday. Could there have been lessons on both days?
No, there could not have been a lesson on Friday because I specifically remember practicing my serve when my brother came out to talk to me
On which day?
on Friday.
Now, you indicated that you were practicing your serve on August 16th as well, correct?
It was something I did to just relax, to get my mind off things.
So could you be mistaking the days?
I don't think so, but I could have.
How long did this last lesson last?
I know it ended short because I really was not up to having a training session that day, and so we ended it short. So it probably was an hour and a half. I'm not sure.
Did you indicate to your coach on that last practice day that you didn't feel well and you wanted to end a session early?
Yes, I did.
You told your coach that.
Yeah.
Did you tell him you were feeling down and you just weren't up to practicing?
Yes.
And you recall that normally the lessons were about 2 hours?
Whatever Mark could do, he had a lot of people that he played with, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours.
But this one you cut short. You
Yeah,
indicated.
yes.
Feeling down and cutting your lesson short, what did you then do?
I know I spent most of the night in the hills of Beverly Hills and around Westwood. During the day, I remember being in and out, but I don't remember exactly what I did.
Was this lesson that you recall on Thursday, was it in the morning then?
Yes,
Do you recall what time that session was?
I think in the morning, sometime before noon.
Do you recall seeing Lyle, your brother, on that day?
I don't specifically recall seeing him on that day. Are you talking about in the afternoon?
Yes.
Yes, I don't specifically recall it. No.
So after the lesson, feeling bad or poorly, what did you do?
I just went. I know I left the house at some times, and I came back. I think I had. I think I went over to eat in Westwood. I believe so. I'm pretty sure, but I don't really remember. I was really anxious for the night, and I didn't really want to be with anyone or talk to anyone.
So you were alone that whole day,
Yes,
and you didn't know where your brother was?
I may have. I don't remember knowing now.
At some point, did you see your brother on Thursday afternoon?
I don't remember. I may very well have. I was at the house a lot. I just don't remember.
Were you in and out of the house?
Yes.
Besides going to eat in Westwood, do you recall anything else that you did that afternoon?
No.
Do you recall when you went back to your Beverly Hills home?
That night?
Yes.
Yeah, late, closer to midnight.
Now, after you left the house and you ate in Westwood, did you ever return to the house from the time that you had lunch to the time that you returned late at night?
Yes.
How many times?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't remember.
At least once, though.
Yes.
And what did you notice when you returned on that one occasion that you can recall?
I just don't recall.
You don't recall seeing your mother or your brother?
I don't recall it.
Do you recall where you pulled your car when you returned that afternoon?
I almost always pulled it in front.
Okay. What time was it that you returned that evening, that night?
Close to midnight, somewhere around midnight.
And did you park in the front of the house when you returned that night?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Thursday night. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was the house locked up?
I don't think so.
Did you have a key?
No.
Did you just go on through unlocked doors, the front doors?
Yeah, I think the front door was unlocked.
So you entered the doors and was anyone awake?
I didn't see anyone.
Were the lights all out?
No, the lights were on.
Where were the lights on?
The light.
Looking at the exhibit that is on the chart of the layout of the house.
Man, that mic.
Exhibit 6.
Okay, so a couple questions here. Good ones too. Let's see here. Debbie Faison Cook, do lawyers take notes while they're asking questions usually? Yes. I mean, not always, but it's very, very common, because usually what you have is either, I mean, depending on the style of the attorney, you either have a basic outline that you know where you want to go, and certain points that you absolutely have to make, or maybe you have like a bunch of questions that you want to ask, but then in between you have to be flexible enough so that you can take the conversation in another direction, because you're operating with a live human being who is going to say some things that might take a conversation in another direction, but you still want to make sure that you hit pieces of information that are crucial to your case, your narrative, your arguments. Because keep in mind, so let me take a step back here and kind of explain this in the context of a trial overall. Let me pull this off screen. So in the context of a trial overall, remember how there's opening statements, closing arguments. If you watched the love triangle murder trial with us most recently, the defense attorney got into a lot of trouble at opening statements because he kept trying to make arguments in his opening statement. This is something that is going to get someone, either side will get into major trouble if they try to do that. And the reason for that is because in order to make an argument, you have to make an argument based off of evidence. And if you are at the opening of trial, no evidence is admitted yet. The jury has not seen any evidence. Nothing's been admitted. Even if you have, decisions that have been made ahead of time as to what's going to be admitted, what's not, sometimes a judge will allow someone, allow the parties to show video, show photos and stuff, because they know that it's going to be admitted, but they have a whole conversation about it ahead of time. So that they might include that in their opening statements sometimes, not always though. But to kind of bring this back to it, in closing, you make your arguments because now the jury has seen everything. They've seen all the evidence. They've listened to all of the witnesses testify. They've, any video surveillance footage, any DNA, fingerprints, like GPS, all this stuff now. And so taking that now, looking at that entire sort of scope of how that all works together, then going to any witness that is on the stand, whether it's direct examination or cross-examination, both sides have certain points that they need to hit so that they can make those arguments in closing. Because if they don't have testimony coming out of certain witnesses, or, don't have certain pieces of evidence that are admitted through a certain witness, then they're not allowed to make the argument later on during closing. So they have certain things that they have to get through each of these. So, they'll probably have like some kind of a checklist of like, of like, okay, like, have you hit this? Have you hit this? Have you hit this? And so oftentimes you'll see that when an attorney gets to the end of their direct examination or the end of their cross examination, there might be a bit of a pause, like a minute of like no one saying anything, and the attorney is just kind of like looking at their notes, looking at their stuff. What they're doing is they're checking through to make sure that they've actually hit all of their points that they need to make. So yeah, and so yeah, that's basically that's all of it in a nutshell. I don't need to go on any further with that, but that's so yes, to answer. So that was like the long-winded version of your to answer your question. Yes, it's very, very common for them to take notes because of, what is happening in real time and how they have to kind of improvise a little bit with witnesses, but comparing that to what they need to what they need to get in. Culperistic also has a question. So is this trying to prove he has problems remembering sequences of events regarding the actual incident with his parents? So, I mean, yes, this is in cross-examination, this is the kind of stuff that is going to be gone over, right? Is if someone is, maybe having a hard time remembering, or, is indicating that they're having a hard time remembering certain events that might be crucial, the other side is going to want to get into the details and be like, so you don't remember this, you don't remember this, you don't remember this. And it's either going to be to point out that their memory is very faulty, or to point out, how can someone who went through this not remember these things? How can, like, how could these details possibly have been missed? They must be making it up. It's one or the other is is entirely desirable for the person that is cross-examining this witness. So, okay, let's continue on. Maybe I should pull up the the footage first. Okay.
Take this. Go ahead. As you entered the house, would you describe for the juries which lights were on in the house?
I remember going around the side to see if the guest house lights were on, because I then went to see if Lyle and my dad were still talking, or where they were talking, or if what was happening in the house. I checked the den lights were on. I know the living room lights were off. I believe the foyer lights were on. Other than that, I couldn't really tell you. I think the den lights were on. I mean, this light and that light, I don't think that light was on. But it's hard to remember so clearly.
Did you go into the den?
The den you're referring to, the family room den?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I did not.
Where did you then?
Also, Sandy, thank you so much for gifting 10 Legal Bites memberships. Very kind and generous of you once again. So, Culperistic, Flash Fan 85, Wheezy, Diane M, Ooh La La, Atea, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Deborah Shady, Rita Venegas, On the Ground, and Gwendolyn SS. You have all been gifted memberships by Sandy. So, welcome or welcome back to Bite Club. And I hope to see you guys on Friday for our members only live stream. And thanks again, Sandy. Very, very, very kind of you. Also, Flash Fan 85 had a question. How would you conduct the Brothers Cross if you were on this case? I would, so let me give a little bit of an asterisk here and say that this is a high profile criminal, capital murder trial. And I have not tried criminal cases. So I would definitely seek a lot of input from other attorneys, especially experienced criminal law attorneys, before actually conducting the cross-examination. But my tendency would be to narrow the issues to what is most important, and to really, like, the most important issues for the prosecution here are whether or not these guys had a sincere or reasonable belief that their lives were in danger at this time. The whole question of like whether or not they were abused. I mean, I don't think that. I think that's a lot of time that the prosecution has been going into that. In 1993, okay, sure, that was a more of a question in a case like this. that I guess was more fertile ground for questioning. Today in 2023, it feels a little different. I know that not everyone thinks that they were abused. Personally, for me, looking at this, I think that they were. I think there's still a way to question what they did, while still believing that they were in fact abused. You could say, like, take the perspective that they were abused and decided to enact vigilante justice. Maybe it's not so sympathetic for the prosecution. It definitely invokes more sympathy for the defense. I mean, but that's kind of more of a route that I would want to go. And so for me, for cross-examination, it would just be, I'm much more of a fan of get in, get out, take what you need, score some points, and then like just get out of there. Don't drag out a cross-examination, because at some point the jury loses you. They lose focus, they stop paying attention, and it just starts to drag on. But the most important point here is whether or not they had a sincere / reasonable belief. If you believe that they had a sincere but unreasonable belief that their lives were in danger, so we might look at that and say that's totally unreasonable, but I think that they thought that they were in danger, then that is voluntary manslaughter, which is much lower. It's still going to jail or prison. It's still get, you're still convicted of some kind of homicide, and they are then going to prison for quite a while. But it's not the same thing as the rest of their lives. So anyway, so there's, I mean, that's the part that I probably would have wanted to focus on most, was the sincerity of their belief and the reasonableness of their belief from that particular weekend. All right, let's continue.
You then go.
Up to my room.
What did you do up there?
I didn't do much before my father got there.
Okay, at some point your father came up to your room.
Yes.
What happened?
He told me to open up the door.
You know what time that was?
It was real soon after I got home.
Shortly after midnight?
Right around then.
Would you describe for the juries what happened?
Yeah, my dad was pounding on the door for me to open it up, and I unlocked the lock, and I just went back to the corner of my room.
Was he simply pounding, or was he yelling and screaming to open up the door?
No, he was telling me to open up the door.
How was he doing that?
He was saying, open up the door, open the goddamn door.
Was he mad?
Yes, he sounded very mad.
You had locked the door as soon as you went into your room, is that right?
I almost always did that.
And you weren't sleeping at the time.
No.
You were sitting on your bed?
I don't remember where I was.
So you hear a knock at your door, a pounding.
Yes.
Was he pounding hard?
Yes, he pounded with his fists.
Was he pounding violently?
I don't know. He was pounding hard.
And did he try the door? Could you hear the door rattling?
Yes.
See the
I mean, here's a question. What does it mean for someone to be pounding on a door non-violently? That's such a throwaway question. And it's just fluff. Anyway, sorry, continue. That was just such a strange question to me.
see the doorknob turning a little bit?
I don't remember.
When he first demanded entry into your room, how did he do that? What did he say?
He said, open up the door, open up the goddamn door, something like that.
Now, you didn't open it up at first, did you? You were afraid to open up that door, weren't you?
Yeah, I was real afraid to open up the door.
You kind of scooting back away from that door.
I don't remember.
Now, you indicated your dad is a big, strong man, correct?
Yes.
Did you think that door was going to come crashing in on you?
I don't remember exactly what I was thinking. I was just afraid to open it up.
Okay, you indicated, I think, in direct examination that you went to the corner of the room. I mean, you were cowering out in the corner of your room. Remember that testimony?
Yes.
So something about your father that night was scaring you. Was it his yelling?
It was more than just his yelling. It was his yelling because I thought he had talked to my brother, and I hadn't talked to my brother yet. So I was real scared when I saw my dad's reaction.
Okay, well, you didn't see him at that point. You heard him.
Exactly.
Now,
Also, real quick, Mountain Princess 207, thanks for gifting 1 Lego Lights membership. So Tish, you are now a member of Bike Club. Welcome to Bike Club, or I think welcome back to Bike Club. And thanks so much, Mountain Princess 207. And another one from Mountain Princess 207. And this time Ernie was gifted a membership. So thank you. So kind. And welcome, Ernie, to Bike Club. So, all right.
would you describe for the juries exactly what he said after he demanded entry and he was pounding and you didn't open up the door? Did he go on and did he curse at you?
I'm sorry. I can't remember. I remember I unlocked the door, and I did it real slowly and real quietly because I didn't want him to know that I was at the door. And I just went back to the back of my bedroom and waited for him to come in.
Before your father actually opened up the door and entered, how long had he been yelling and screaming for you to open the door and pounding on your door? How long had that been going on?
10 seconds.
So you opened it up pretty quick.
Yeah, I wasn't going to wait long.
Didn't you testify that you were afraid and you didn't want to open it at first and you kept yelling, so you decided to open up that little lock?
You didn't say no to my dad. Whenever my dad came into my room and started yelling or did something like that, I froze up, and I wasn't able to refuse him very easily.
So that night, he entered into your room.
Yes.
And were you in the corner as you testified?
Yes, I was in the corner of the room.
Were you watching his facial expressions, his hand signals, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's what I normally did.
Okay. As he entered, were your lights on in your room?
Yes.
As he entered, what did he say to you?
He said, the first thing he said?
Yes.
I don't remember the first thing he said. I remember the first things that he said, though. I don't remember the first words that he said.
Okay. What do you remember he said?
He was saying that he told me never to tell Lyle, that he had warned me never to do that. And now look what was going to happen, that Lyle was going to tell everybody.
Was he mad?
He was furious.
Was he yelling at you?
Yes.
Was he screaming at you?
No, my dad didn't really scream.
He yelled.
He just raised his voice, and it got very deep, but fairly loud.
He had a booming voice. I mean, his voice could scare you, couldn't it?
His voice could scare me when it wasn't booming. It wasn't like my mother's. But he didn't like showing a lot of emotion like that. He did it when he couldn't control himself sometimes, but he didn't have a booming voice because he prided himself on not reacting like that.
But this night, he just went off. He was yelling at you, wasn't he?
He was yelling. I wouldn't say that his voice was all over the place, but he was very loud.
He was very loud.
Yeah.
Right. What kind of look did he have on his face? You've indicated that you would be able to take a look at his expression and you would decide, well, okay, he wants a certain kind of sex, or he's going to beat me this day, or he's going to whip me this day. What kind of look did he give you?
It wasn't just his look. It was his body movements, whether he was hunched up, whether he was back, whether he was looking calm or angry. I couldn't even begin to show you the looks that he had. I couldn't even begin to show you how scary they were.
You mean the looks that he had over a period of time, or that night?
That night, or when he was angry.
Well, let's try to do that.
I think if he were making up this portion here, I mean, because there's this question that the prosecution side or people that believe the prosecution, that are more on the prosecution side of this case, that say that Erik made up all of this stuff about his father. I think that if that were the case, I mean, he would have had to really rehearse this part because the way that he just delivered that about, you know, it wasn't just a look that he would give, it was his body language. He was like reenacting, you know, him being hunched forward and being upright, and you know, like this kind, it was very, the body language was very smooth in matching with the words. And I'm no Spidey, right? I'm no behavioral artist, but to me, just looking at that, like it seems like it's truly coming from a real place when he's like giving that information, not just verbally, but also with his own body language. So
That for the jury so they can understand what was happening.
I cannot.
Judge Thatcher on the top of the screen.
What are you asking me to do?
I'm asking the witness to describe for the jurors what his father did, how he looked that night as he entered the room.
Demonstrate or just verbally?
Just verbally describe it.
Who's body checking?
The question is, how did he look?
Yes.
He looked like he was a bull. He looked like he was forceful, furious, and coming at me. He looked very. I had never really seen him that angry before that. He really looked angry.
He was intent on getting you that night, wasn't he?
I don't know what he was thinking in his mind. I know what I saw.
Well, what was your state of mind?
That this man was coming at me, that I didn't want to be in the room, that my dad was. I wished I didn't have any other choice but to open the door, but I wished that I hadn't gone in the house.
And you, did he actually charge you?
No, at first he just started yelling.
What did he say?
He said that
Judge,
he
you're asked and answered.
had told me never to tell Lyle, and that he'd warned me not to do that. And now look what was going to happen. That Lyle was going to tell everyone, and that he wasn't going to let that happen.
After he yelled this at you, he charged you?
Yes.
Did he knock you against the wall?
No, he threw me on the bed.
Okay. As he threw you on the bed, did your bed go banging up against the wall?
No, my bed was a large stationary unit. It didn't shake.
we've seen photos of it. And that seems like I mean, it's got like a bookshelf like built into it. So it's like, it does seem like the kind of bed that would not move.
Then what happened?
And then I guess he came over me. I'm not really sure. As he was coming over, somehow I just was able to go like this and get away from the bed. It just happened so quickly that it's hard to picture. I remember I was scrambling over the desk, and then I was thrown on the bed, and then he was coming at me, coming over me, and then I just scrambled out of that bed.
So you scrambled off the bed. Did you knock over any furniture or knock the desk into any wall or anything like that?
Which desk are you talking about?
You indicated that you have a desk in your room?
Yes.
Okay, did you knock into the desk as you were fleeing from your father?
Things fell off the desk, but the desk didn't knock over, no.
Things were getting banged around?
No.
No?
No.
Things fell off the desk like what?
Like I had a typewriter on the desk that fell on the desk and almost broke.
That's a pretty heavy typewriter.
It's an electric typewriter.
That fell off. Anything else?
My thought when he said that he had a typewriter on his desk, my thought was like, wow, vintage. Like no one has typewriters, but like obviously this is 1993. Not everyone had a computer at their desk.
Fall off?
I don't remember.
As you were getting away from your father, where was he? I mean, did he jump on your bed too?
He was
trying to grasp at you?
Yeah, he was. I guess he was trying. I mean, I wasn't looking when I was thrown on the bed. I wasn't. My back was faced to him, and he was coming over, and I just tried to push away his hand or whatever he was grabbing at me, and just scrambled off the bed.
Okay, and as you scrambled off the bed, what happened?
I just ran.
Where'd you run?
I ran downstairs
And where'd you go?
into the den.
And I think you testified that your mother was laying on the couch watching TV in the den.
She was sitting on the couch.
Sitting on the couch,
Mm-hmm.
watching TV, correct?
Mm-hmm.
This was after.
Yes.
This was after midnight.
Yes.
Were any lights on in the den?
Yes, the den lights were on.
Let me get a couple questions here. Let's see here. Kel Marie, I know we still have a ways to go here, but are you going to do another classic trial after this? I love this kind of content. This is what I came to LawTube for. I want to leave things open for myself because you're right. We do have a ways to go, but I think I probably do, and probably a shorter trial after this, just to be able to like round it out a little bit faster. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm really enjoying this quite a bit. So Cat Love Dreaming Peach also says, Alita, do you know if there's anybody actively working towards trying to get them out right now legally? There's a whole habeas corpus petition that has recently been filed on the basis of two things that they say are new. One is the testimony, or I guess they have an affidavit, I think, of Roy Rosselló, who was a member of Menudo, who came forward and said that Jose did all the same kind of things to him when he was a boy. And then also there's the second piece is I don't think it's new enough. I don't think it's something that is yeah, I don't think it's enough to really warrant a new trial because sorry, it's a letter that Erik wrote to his cousin Andy about the abuse and about, like it's happening again and it's now worse than it used to be, this kind of thing. It was not admitted at trial the first two times because I guess they couldn't find it or something, or they forgot about it. It was in Andy's possession. It relatively recently was found in his storage unit. He unfortunately is no longer living. But the problem with that is that Andy testified at trial himself, and this is a letter that Erik himself wrote to his cousin. So he would have had noticed that it existed, even if he forgot that it existed. It's something that he would have known was possible. The reason why Roy Rosselló is different is because no one knew that this had allegedly happened to him until he came forward. So like there's no way that Erik and Lyle in 1993 would have known that Roy Rosselló had these allegations that he was going to later make. So that's the reason why that's different. But yes, that's another long answer to a simple question. I'm doing that quite a bit tonight. Yes, there is an effort. So Patty B, are they getting a new trial? We don't know yet. We don't know. They are trying to work towards that or towards an early release. Also, FlashFan85, random question for later. I was reading the Scott Peterson trial transcripts. It was a death penalty case. What happens during a penalty phase is sentencing. So there's, I mean, when you have a bifurcated trial, you have the liability portion, which is, whether or not the state has met its burden to prove that the defendant did the things that they say they did. And then the other part is sentencing, which is where they're determining, okay, this person is guilty. How much time are they going to be serving now? So that's what that is. And I think that's all the questions here. And also, Jessica, welcome to Bike Club. Thanks so much for becoming a YouTube member and for supporting the channel. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you on Friday for our members only live stream. All right, let's continue.
When you entered the house that night and went through the foyer and went up to your room, you would go by the den, would you not?
You wouldn't go by it. You'd go to the stairs.
So you heard the TV on that night. You saw your mother in there that night, didn't you?
I didn't see my mother in there. I don't remember if I heard the TV.
You didn't remember seeing anyone that night, I thought you had indicated when you entered the house.
No, I didn't.
But when you came down after your father had come into your room, your mother was sitting there watching TV.
Yes.
And you had a conversation with your mother at that point, correct?
Yes.
What did you say to her?
She said something to me.
What did she say to you?
She said, "What's the matter with you?"
And how did you respond to
I
her?
just said, "No, nothing. You wouldn't understand. You won't understand."
And then she said something to you.
Yes.
What did she say?
She said, "Oh, I understand."
Okay. And what did you say?
There were a lot of words. She said, "Oh, I understand. I understand a lot more than you think," something like that. And I said, it just took me back. And I said, "What?" I said, what do you know? Or something to that effect. And she said, oh, I know. Something was wrong with her. She was too heavily medicated. I'm not really sure. So her voice was a little off. Her head was moving. She had a little smirk on her face.
And you just stood there and watched all of her expressions and her little smirk, and you had this conversation with her?
I wouldn't call it a conversation. I was crying at the time.
Okay.
And it was just a pretty short exchange that just shocked me.
Do you guys like this 1993 filter with the color band over the VHS?
You talked to her, she talked to you, correct?
Yes.
And then what happened?
And she told me what she told me that she knew, and I just told her I hated her.
And then what happened?
I ran out to the back of the den.
Now, in the family room, when you were having this conversation with your mother, when she said, "I know," she didn't say what she knew. She says, "I know more than you think I know." Is that
No,
what
she
said?
says, "I know, I've always known. What do you think, I'm stupid?" Or something. She said, "I know, I've always known." And then she said, "What do you think, I'm stupid?" I remember the last phrase in particular.
Now, was she yelling at you at that point?
No.
Okay, when she said that to you, she never said what she knew, the substance or the subject of what she knew. She just simply said to you, "I know."
Yes, that's true.
So at the point at which she said, "I know," did you get upset?
Yeah, I got upset. I got scared for a moment. I got shocked. I mean, what she was saying, I just was something that I did not believe all of my life, and I absolutely refused to believe all of my life.
That your mother knew something? That she knew anything?
Well, I definitely thought she was talking about my dad and I, and it was very hard for me right at that moment. I got angry.
When you got angry, did you yell? Did you yell at your mom?
I don't know if it was a yell. She was close to me, but I think I raised my voice.
Raised your voice and said what?
I said, "I hate you."
This is the night that your brother testified he heard the arguing from his guest house, correct? Do you remember him testifying that he heard your mom and you yelling and arguing from his guest house?
I don't know if he testified to that.
You don't recall that?
I recall him saying that he heard my mom. I don't really recall what he said.
Your,
Yeah. Also, sorry, totally not related to the testimony, but sorry about the Indycam. The device from which I filmed the Indycam portion has lost power. So I'm trying to recharge it as we speak, and then I'll try to bring it back on as soon as possible. But yeah, sorry guys. I know it's a favorite.
your brother lived in the guest house at the rear of the property, correct?
Yes.
Do you think about this? Do you recall him testifying that he was upstairs in his bedroom and he heard the argument, the yelling and screaming from the main house?
No, I don't remember him saying that. I mean, when we left the main house, my mom was screaming at me at that point when we were more toward the guest house. I don't really remember what he testified to. I
Now-
can tell you what happened.
Was she yelling at you while she was in that family room?
No,
She did not yell at you,
no,
and you did not yell at her.
no,
You raised your voice.
yes.
And at some point, then did you, after this conversation or this discussion with your mother, did you exit the house
Yeah, I ran out the back of the den.
through the French doors?
Yes.
And did you have to unlock those doors?
No.
They were unlocked.
I don't remember if they were unlocked. And I believe those are the French doors that when you open, it unlocks automatically, whether it's locked or not. Some mechanism inside. So I don't even know if it was locked.
At some point, you exited those French doors, and did your mother follow you?
Yes.
And was she right on your tail?
Fairly close. Fairly close.
And when is it, as she exited the house, was she yelling, "Come back here"? What did you testify that she said to you?
No, I remember as I was exiting the house and just getting out, she spoke from within her in sort of a grumbling voice when she was just about getting really angry, and she said, "Get back here" at first. And then I took off to the guest house, and that's when she chased me.
Okay, after she gave you that grumbly voice, did she then yell for you to stop and come back here and don't act that way to me?
Yeah, when we were headed toward the guest house. I guess it was before I got to the guest house. I don't remember exactly where I was. There's a tennis court and the pool, and we were running in between. She said, "Get back here, you bastard."
Was she yelling?
Yeah, at that point, she was
Well,
yelling.
let me ask you this. Was she yelling loud enough so that when your brother testified that he heard her yelling from his guest house, the upstairs bedroom, could he have heard that?
Objection on the facts.
Do you believe that your state of mind, whether you had been speaking loud enough and yelling loud enough and your mother yelling loud enough for neighbors to hear what you were doing?
No.
Objection.
Now, these two nights, Tuesday and Thursday, let me ask you this, Mr. Menendez. Where was your father all this time? I thought he was so intent on attacking you that night. Where was he when you had this conversation with your mother?
Before we question the
Rephrase the question.
Very well, Your Honor. You said your father had come into your room. He was mad. He was yelling. He was going to get you. You knew he was going to get you. And then all of a sudden, you're out of your room. You're down in the den talking to your mother. Where was your father all this time? I thought he was ready to get you.
Rephrase the question.
Where was your father? Do you know where your father was as you exited? Did you see him again that night?
No, I never saw him again that night.
So this father that you testified would follow you to the four corners of this earth to get you and hunt you down. Couldn't even find you in your own house, could he?
Objection.
No.
Argumentative.
Objection, sustain the answer.
Thank you.
He didn't come into the den, did he?
No, he did not, sir.
I'm actually a little bit surprised that the judge did not overrule that objection by Leslie about Kuriyama being argumentative, because Kuriyama has asked some questions of Erik so far that have been, I think, within this court's standard of what constitutes argumentative, right? I've talked about before how this court is a little bit overly sensitive, in my opinion, over what is considered a question that is argumentative versus like a normal cross-examination question, which is just fair game. But if they are sensitive, across the board, then they, so long as they are even across the board as to, how that definition of argumentative gets, played out. So here, I mean, Kuriyama 100% is being argumentative within that definition. So I was a little bit surprised that the judge actually sided with Leslie on that one. But I think that Kuriyama is maybe whether or not he's going to not be allowed to ask the question in that way, he's still signaling to the jury about like, hey, like, where was your dad if he was so aggressive and he was going to follow you to the ends of the earth and all this kind of stuff. Like, he's planting those questions in the jury's in the minds of the jurors, so that they can ask that question, because that is in at the heart of one of like some of the most important legal questions here. Whether or not you think that that's an indication, that he would back off for the rest of that evening or what have you, that's an indication that he wouldn't then figure out a way to follow them to the ends of the earth to harm them over this whole thing. That's, that's another question.
He didn't come out to the guest house, did he?
Not that night. Not that I saw.
Now, these 2 nights, this Tuesday and Thursday that you testified to, nights where these violent or argumentative, yelling confrontations occurred, these were nights, sir, if I may approach, Your Honor?
Well, it is not only argumentative, it very well be compound with its being phrased. So let's rephrase.
Yeah,
What are you going to be doing?
I just want to go to the chart.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Menendez, do you know that there was a maid living at your house Monday through Friday?
Yes, there was.
Flor Dia Maria Soria, right?
Flora was
Flor is
how I called her.
by. And Flor stayed in the maid's room as indicated here. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Next to the family room, correct?
No, there's a wall.
Well,
But
the next room.
directly behind it, I suppose, yes.
Now, if she didn't hear anything Thursday night or Tuesday night, how would you explain that you had these violent confrontations on those nights?
Objection, Your Honor. Since that time,
That night, sir, did you spend the night in your brother's guest house?
Yes, I did.
Now, you say your mother was chasing you to your brother's guest house, correct?
Yes.
And did she enter the guest house?
She came up to the floor where my brother lived, so yes.
When you arrived at the guest house door, was the door unlocked?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and did you beat your mother to that door?
Yes, I did.
And you entered into your brother's guest house?
Yes, I did.
Did you yell for your brother to help you mom's after me?
Something to that extent. I called out Lyle and I said, Mom knows, Mom's coming, Mom knows.
Did you see your brother come down the stairs?
No, I said that as soon as I entered from the top of the stairs. There's a stairs that goes up the side of the guest house. There's a door at the top. And as soon as I entered that door.
So as soon as you entered the door, you could see your brother?
Yes,
Where was he?
he was in his bedroom. He was sort of in the coming out. I'm not really positive he was in it or coming out.
His bedroom was up on the second floor?
Yes,
And when you entered, you could see him coming out of his bedroom door?
he was right there. There's a little, the door opens and his bedroom doors right in front, and then right to the left is a little like living area, and he was right there as the door opened. So I don't know if he was coming out of his bedroom or what, but he was right there.
And did your big brother come down and protect you from your big mother?
Excuse me?
Did your big brother protect you from your big mother?
I'm waiting for an objection here to the characterization of Kitty as his big mother. Definitely argumentative, also mischaracterizing the evidence. Like, but at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily, if I'm defense, I wouldn't want to object that it's mischaracterizing the evidence, because you don't want to then be making the argument that Kitty is a small person. But I mean, I would just object that it's argumentative. I don't know. I'm waiting for it. I don't hear. Maybe we'll hear it immediately when I press play. No objection.
In a sense, I mean, he started an argument with her.
Did he step in front of you?
Yeah, I went back because I knew she was coming up the stairs. He could hear her, and he stepped in front of me. Yes.
Did he give her a hand signal to stop?
No.
Did he say, "Don't hurt my brother"?
I don't remember him saying that.
What do you remember?
I remember my mom screaming as she was coming up the stairs and in the guest house, in the that little room, and my brother saying, "How could you know? Why haven't you done anything? How could you know all this time? This and that."
Your brother is having this conversation with your mother at that point,
Yes.
and your father never came to the guest house.
No, he did not.
And how long did this conversation take place? Over what period of time?
I would say within a minute or two. Within a minute or two, she had left.
She just turned around and left and went back to the main house, as far as you knew.
Yeah, she was, I guess, really, really exasperated and just left.
And what did you and your brother do at that point?
Lyle and I talked.
What did you talk about?
We talked about what I wanted to know what his conversation with Dad was, because clearly things did not go well, and he wanted to know, why was Mom screaming at me? How did I know that Mom knew all of these things? So we were sort of talking at the same time, and he told me to calm down.
That night, did you go upstairs to his room?
We were in the upstairs.
Okay. And that's where his bedroom is?
Yeah, there's only 2 rooms on the top of the floor.
And you had a discussion with your brother that night about what you were going to do?
About what was happening and what we could do, yeah.
And you decided to get guns and shoot your parents?
No, sir.
What did you decide?
We did decide eventually to get guns, though.
Did you stay up most of the night discussing the gun situation?
No.
How long do you call staying up that night?
I stayed up really late. I stayed up till maybe 4 a.m. But Lyle had gone back to his bedroom by that time.
You were in the bedroom at that point, were you not?
No, we were not.
Where were you discussing this?
I was sitting on the couch, and Lyle was right in front of me, sometimes sitting, sometimes standing up.
Where?
In the little living area right there. I don't know what he calls it. I guess it could be called the family room.
Would that be on the second floor?
Yes.
So you had this discussion, and at some point, your brother retired for the night?
He went back to his bedroom.
Okay. And what did you do?
I stayed right there.
Now, you were scared that your father and mother were going to kill you, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you just stay upstairs and go to sleep after that?
I stayed up for a long time. Eventually, I fell asleep.
So you never went back downstairs until you woke up the next morning?
That's right.
If you were so scared, why didn't you go downstairs and you knew the door was unlocked when you entered the guest house? Why didn't you go lock it and barricade yourselves in there? Did you do anything like that?
No, we locked the door at the top of the stairs, but we never went downstairs.
Okay, so there's a door leading into the 2 rooms then?
Yeah, there's a door at the top of the stairs, and then there is the door at the bottom.
Did you take a bat and put it next to your bed or anything like that?
No.
So you went to sleep that night, and the next morning was Friday
morning.
18th of August.
Yes.
And do you recall that morning what happened?
I recall going out to the tennis court.
Okay, what time did you wake up that night?
I don't remember.
You recall that it was morning when you woke up,
Yes, sir.
and did you have all your clothes on still from the night before?
Yes.
And you had been out most of the day. The previous day, you had been to Westwood and you had lunch, correct?
Yes.
And then you had been out and you came home about midnight.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so you went directly to the tennis courts?
The next morning,
Yes.
I threw on some clothes first.
Where?
I had jeans on. I had slept in my jeans, and
Okay.
I put on some tennis shorts.
How did you do that?
I was in my brother's guest house. There were clothes all around.
So you used his clothes,
Yes, sir.
and you didn't go into the main house. You went directly to the tennis courts.
Right.
And you started to hit some balls.
Yes.
I think you indicated that it was a sunshiny day and the birds were chirping.
Yes, it seemed like a really bright day to me, like everything should have been fine and just a normal day. But
Was it early in the morning that you woke up, if you can recall?
I know the sun was out. It may have been 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I really don't remember.
When you woke up, you got off of was it the couch you slept on?
Yeah, I slept on the couch.
Did you go to your brother's room to see if he was okay? Maybe he had been killed during the night?
No, I believe I went in there to either get some shorts or something. I know he was sleeping there.
So you actually went into his bedroom and you got some of his shorts and his tennis shoes?
I don't remember if the shorts were in the main room or in the bedroom, but I remember going into his bedroom.
And you got dressed so that you could be appropriately attired for your tennis that day.
I just threw on some shorts.
So you had the same dress shirt you had on from the day before?
Yes.
And you started to hit some balls.
Yes, sir.
And at some point, did Mark Heffernan show up, give you a lesson?
No.
How long were you out on the tennis court?
Half hour. Maybe a half hour, not that long.
Did you have a bucket of balls there that you could just hit like 100 balls and then go to the other side of the net and do the same thing?
Yeah, there was a basket. Everything was kept in the guest house. I had a lot of tennis rackets, and sometimes you brought it to the main house. Sometimes you left it in the guest house, but usually it was kept there. And there were a few bucket of balls. There were still that you would play with.
So all the tennis equipment was kept in the guest house.
Usually it was kept in the guest house. Sometimes it was kept in the main house, but usually that morning I think it was in the guest house because I know I had my rackets there.
So that was normal that the tennis equipment would be in the guest house because there was room in the guest house for that sort of thing.
I would say it would be normal.
After hitting these balls around for about 30 minutes, what did you do after that?
Lyle came out.
And what happened?
And he said, you ready? We better get going. Something like that.
This is early in the morning.
8, 9 o'clock.
Now, when he said, "Are you ready? We better get going," what did that mean to you?
I had a feeling it meant go get the guns.
Had you that night discussed what kind of guns you would get?
Not really, just any handgun. I didn't know really what.
Now, you were familiar with handguns, weren't you?
No, sir.
Had you ever heard of different types of handguns?
Not really. Not really.
When you discussed the guns with the handguns with your brother, did you discuss, well, let's get a 357 or let's get a 9mm?
Definitely not.
No? So you didn't know much about guns.
No.
So when your brother said, let's get going, you knew he meant we got to get the guns, we got to protect ourselves.
Yes.
Is that right? What did you then do?
I sort of said, I got a tournament coming up. I have things to do. I don't really want to do that.
And then what happened?
And then he said, Erik, he convinced me, not really convinced me, he just told me that this was serious and that this may be the next morning, but this was still real. And I said, all right.
And so did you just go as you were attired at that moment to your car, or what happened?
No, I went up to my room to get my wallet. I had some money, and I had some more money in a little book case that I kept money in there.
How did you enter into the main house that morning?
I don't remember.
You don't remember which door you went through?
No, I may simply have just gone through the living room door. I'm not really sure.
The living room, through the front of the house? Toward the front of the house?
No, the back of the house.
The living room door that's comes out into the side yard?
Yes.
So you recall that?
No, that's what I usually did when I came from the guest house, though.
Was the door simply, was it unlocked? Did you have to use any key?
I don't remember going through the door, so I don't remember what was locked and what was unlocked.
So at some point you entered into your house and you went up to your bedroom
Yes.
and you got some money.
Yeah, I grabbed my wallet, I grabbed some money, and I
How
met
much money
Lyle.
did you grab?
I had somewhere around $300, and so I took everything that I had.
And did your brother have a discussion with you that night that
I don't know how much $300 is worth today because this is 30 years ago, but $300 back in 1993, I think is a substantial amount of money. So, casually talking about it. But again, I there's been enough testimony in this trial to understand where these guys came from. And there's been other, like Lyle testified also to like being able to just like grab cash off the countertops and, like buy things and things like that.
you should go and grab your cash because we need it to buy the guns?
That night?
Yes.
You mean the night
The
before?
night before.
I don't remember that.
So you on your own decide that you go up to your room and get your cash.
We may have talked about it Friday morning. He may have. I just don't remember.
Now your brother had a credit card during that period of time, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
He, at some point, did you learn that he had also brought cash with him?
Yes.
After you went upstairs to your bedroom and you got your,
I think the insinuation that Kuriyama is making there is that, if you buy it with a credit card, then it's, traceable and whatnot by the authorities. The other part of that, though, is that it's also traceable by Kitty and Jose, because it's their credit cards. So even if Lyle was in possession of it, it's not his credit card, and it's not, like he pays the bills for it with money that he earns from some kind of an independent job. It's his parents' credit card, and mom and dad look at the statements at the end of the month to see, what's being purchased. So if suddenly there's a gun purchase on there that they didn't know about, do you think that's going to heighten some suspicion, maybe raise an alarm for his parents? Yeah, of course. We've heard why, their thought process, at least at what Lyle has testified to was their thought process on this.
your cash and you came down. Did you tell your brother, I got $300, how much do you have? Did you have that kind of discussion?
I may very well have. I don't remember.
Did you at some point decide where you were going to go make your purchase?
Yes.
Okay. Did you look in a phone book, or how did you do that?
No, we figured we'd just go over to the sporting goods store.
Okay. And I believe your brother testified you drove over to the Santa Monica Big Five store?
Yeah, it was on the one right across from the 405, right on the other side of the 405.
Which street was that on?
Santa Monica, I believe.
And so, isn't there a Big Five in Beverly Hills?
No.
There isn't.
No.
So you
This checks out. and knowing if you're not familiar, Big Five, I've shown this before earlier on in this series, but Big Five Sporting Goods Store was I think it's bankrupt now. I don't know if there are any more locations, but I'm pretty sure it went through bankruptcy at the very least. But it was a giant, like a big box sporting goods store where you could go in, you can get camping gear, fishing gear, running gear, football stuff, like American football, European football, all the different sports, like all kinds of things here. It was one of those, like, it's usually you usually find them in a strip mall. So if you're familiar with Beverly Hills, that's the kind of place that does not have giant strip malls. I mean, sometimes, yes, you can find like, Whole Foods, I guess, which requires more space. But like when it comes to stores that are not Whole Foods, or some grocery stores, like other like items like that, there's, Beverly Hills is more likely to have some boutique hiking store, boutique running store, or, like these more individualized kind of places rather than a Big Five sporting goods store, which is like one of these massive things. It's like, it's kind of like the size of not necessarily the size of a Walmart, but big, like similar to that. So yeah.
Well, was that the closest Big Five?
Closest Big Five that I knew of.
So whose car did you go in?
Mine.
And who drove?
Oh, and also, Nico Kiski, interesting. They apparently have 431 or 434 stores in multiple states. Okay, so I guess they are still in operation. I was not aware. But thank you so much for that clarification. I love when folks look up that kind of stuff in real time. And also, you know what? Let me get this now that before I, while I've already paused. Your Everyday Sheep says, do you know generally how conversations about a plea deal will happen? I heard in this case, the defense attorneys tried multiple times for something like that, but it always failed. I mean, I have never been, party to like the specific process, but my understanding is it's similar to any civil settlement agreement where one side's attorney picks up the phone and talks to the other side and says, are you interested in settling? Are you interested in this or that? It might be a phone call, or maybe they just draft up a letter, or an email. I mean, in 1993, it wouldn't have been an email, but it would have been a more formalized letter. But oftentimes they can start very informally by just having a conversation over the phone where you're talking about the status of the case and you're like, okay, this is where we are right now. This is what we've got. We're getting into discovery. We're getting into this. We're getting into that. The judge wants us to come for this status hearing, et cetera, and be like, all right, so how do you guys feel about wrapping up this case before it goes to trial? So you can have these kinds of things, or even outside of a hearing, just, in the hallways talking about these kinds of things. That's how it works, at least in a civil context. So I imagine it's something similar for a criminal case as well. Because that's essentially what a plea deal is it's a settlement. It's a settlement on the case so that they don't actually have to go to trial and to actually go move forward with everything, where the defendant agrees to plead guilty. The state agrees to have them serve out a sentence that is going to be or serve time that's going to be much fewer years than they would potentially if a jury actually finds that they are guilty. So yeah. Anyhow, all right.
My brother.
Was that common for your brother to drive your car when you went out together?
Yes.
Okay, so did your brother know where this Big Five in Santa Monica was? Or did you?
I'm not sure. I may very well have told him. I don't remember.
So at some point you went to the Big Five in Santa Monica.
Yes.
And you took a look at handguns.
Also, for folks that are not so familiar with this geography, Beverly Hills is very close to Santa Monica. They're like right next to each other. They're both considered on like the west side of LA. West side meaning it's west of the 405 freeway, which goes up and down the coast for a period of time, like through Los Angeles, definitely. So these are all considered like some of the more desirable parts to live in, definitely more expensive than other parts of Los Angeles. Not to say that the other parts of Los Angeles are anything negative. But oftentimes when I've heard of folks that live in LA, they prefer to live in, I mean, Beverly Hills, of course, people know about that. Santa Monica, West LA, like those kind of areas that are all they're all situated on the west side, closer to the beaches and all that kind of stuff. So Santa Monica is right next to Beverly Hills. It's very, very close to it, but with traffic can feel very far away.
Yes.
Now, what kind of guns were you considering? What kind of handguns were you and your brother thinking about getting? I mean, did you have any idea? Or did you just look at the guns that were in this display and say, well, that one looks good, that one looks good? Or how did you do that?
Well, I remember asking the man behind the counter, which are real and which are BB guns. You know, if these are real guns or if these are BB guns, and he told me just a little bit about that. This is a real gun. This is a BB gun. And
okay, so you knew nothing about handguns, really?
Really, only what what anyone knows. I didn't know much about it.
Did he show you?
And that's helpful to the defense because it shows that these guys didn't really know what they were doing. They were just sort of like trying to come, make things up as they go, and trying to make decisions, based on the information that they had there. Really not familiar with guns, really not familiar with even how to use them, et cetera, et cetera. That's helpful to the defense in my opinion.
Show you, did he show you 22s and 25s and 38s, or was there a pretty big variety of guns that you had? Since you didn't know anything about them, really, did he explain the different sorts of guns kind of to you? Since I guess it was apparent that you and your brother didn't know anything about guns.
No, we didn't.
I think that's compound.
Objection sustained.
Okay.
Raise a question, please.
Now, when you were looking at these guns, was your brother right there with you?
Yes, sir.
You weren't trying to hide anything.
No.
So he was right up there with you at the counter looking at these handguns?
Yes.
Were they in a glass case or were they up on a wall?
They were in the glass case.
Okay. And as you're looking at these guns, could you see a big variety of guns?
I remember seeing different guns in the shelf. I think it was a 2-shelf container. I believe so. And there were guns on the top. That's what I remember seeing.
Now, these were handguns that you were seeing? Okay.
Yes.
Now, was the top shelf handguns as well as the bottom shelf?
I can't remember that clearly, but I remember looking through the case at the different guns that he had there.
As you were looking through the case of these handguns, did you have any discussion with your brother that one looks pretty good or anything like that?
I may have. We were talking with the man. The three of us were just talking. I don't really remember.
Was there any other worker up there? Was there any female workers, or was it just the man that you were talking to?
I just remember the man.
Do you recall what he looked like?
I have no idea what he looked like.
Okay. In any event, do you recall that he showed you certain kind of handguns? For example, did he say this 9mm automatic is a pretty good gun?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we were just talking about what the guns were, and we asked if we could buy one now.
Okay.
Something to that
Let me
extent.
ask you this. When you went in to buy the guns, did you just ask the man to tell you about guns since you didn't know anything about it?
No, I remember specifically just looking at them and then asking if these were real.
Right. And what did he say?
He pointed out which ones were and which ones were not. I believe the ones that were not were over to the right. The pellet guns or the BB guns, I believe they were over to the right, and the real ones were more in the center where I was. That's my recollection. I could be wrong.
Do you recall seeing, do you know the difference between an automatic and a revolver? Handguns. Like the revolver would be the kind that you see on Western movies and
Yes.
the film. Did you see those as well as the other kind that you see in the more recent movies, the what they call an automatic?
I don't remember seeing revolvers. I don't remember. I specifically remember seeing the ones that did not have a revolver.
Okay. Do you recall the man?
So here's a question here, Carolyn V. What are they trying to establish here? I believe that what they're trying to establish, I mean, everything talking about going to Big Five, going to multiple Big Fives and getting information from all of these things. From what I can tell, it looks like Kuriyama is going for premeditation. They are looking for, learning about these guns so that they can understand like what's going to do, what's going to do the most damage, what's going to, be the best for in a predatory kind of way, and to try to frame it later as self-defense. Because this is what the prosecution needs the jury to believe, is that these guys planned all of this out. They decided early on they were going to kill their parents, and they were going to, use firearms for it, and that they were going to, I don't know, that they were planning all of this out ahead of time. So, so I don't know how well all of this goes to that premeditation. I'm not like, to me, it kind of just feels like there's a lot of fluff here for me. And that is the danger with that, is that you lose the focus of the jury. So, anyway.
Man, giving you advice on what kind of caliber to get?
I just don't recall.
At some point, you picked out a handgun that you thought was appropriate. Is that right?
Yes.
And did your brother also pick out one?
I suppose. I don't remember.
Was it, you suppose, but you don't remember? Was your brother right next to you at
Yes.
that period of time?
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, was it a stainless steel silver gun, or was it a blue steel type of gun that you decided on eventually, the handgun?
Who else heard blue steel and thought Zoolander? Sorry.
Blue steel?
There are some guns, I suppose, that you saw in this glass case that were like a silver color, and others that were like what they call a blue steel, or it looks almost like a black colored gun. Do you recall which kind you decided on?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you recall the caliber that you decided on?
I really don't. It wasn't. As soon as we said that one looks good and that type of thing, we talked about, could we get it now? How do you go about buying it? And that's when he told us we had to. There was some sort of a waiting period, and so it wasn't an in-depth discussion.
Now, had your brother also selected one at that point when you selected yours? Did he select one? Did you indicate to him that you needed to buy two, not just one?
Yes.
Okay. So at that point, had your brother also said, that one looks good to me?
I just don't remember.
Do you recall your brother's testimony that about the guns?
Not
at
really.
This Big Five store in Santa Monica?
No, I don't.
You don't remember his testimony on that?
I remember him testifying that we went there. I don't really remember what he said about it.
Which just goes to show, not everybody can pay attention during all portions of every single witness testifying. Even if you're a criminal defendant, there are limits to the ability of a person to pay attention, during 8 hours in a day. And we've talked about this before. There may be some neurodivergence there with Erik. We don't know. Because we're not psychiatrists, and even if we were, we can't diagnose from a distance. But just goes to show, right? This is another reminder that humans only have so much capacity for paying attention.
Do you recall his testimony on September 17th, volume 88 at page 14,583?
No, I can object to the reading of it.
Why don't you paraphrase it first?
Okay. Do you recall that your brother testified in his examination that basically you were actually in the process of buying the guns when you're told you couldn't leave the store without the guns at that point? You had already made your decisions as to which kinds of guns you wanted to buy.
Yeah, that's
Why
confusing.
don't you rephrase the question?
Okay, Your Honor.
Couldn't leave the store without the gun?
That's-
Yes. Mr. Menendez, do you recall your brother stating in his testimony that you had basically selected the guns, you're ready to purchase the guns, and then you found out that you couldn't leave the stores with the guns because you had the 15-day waiting period.
I don't remember him testifying to that, but that's roughly what happened.
That's right. Now, you're telling the truth about everything in this case, aren't you?
I'm telling the truth to the best that I can.
Okay. And even though you've lied in the past, you're telling the truth now, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Did you truly go to the Santa Monica Big Five store on the morning of August 18th to buy these handguns?
Definitely.
And
Without a doubt, I did.
you and Lyle did.
Yes.
And you and Lyle actually looked in this case and you selected these guns and you were told you couldn't leave the store with those handguns because there's a 15-day wait.
There's something here that feels like Kuriyama is laying a trap for him, and I don't know what it is, but I'm sure we'll see it soon.
Yes.
Mr. Menendez, did you know that Big Five stopped carrying handguns in March of 1986?
There it is.
No, I don't know that.
Now,
Mr. Kuriyama, there were guns there, and we did look at them, and he did say we could not carry them anymore.
Now,
I will say, if that's true, if that's the case, that's a problem either with his memory or with his honesty. So, and that's catching someone that with an impeachment, right? That's catching a witness with an impeachment. There was a reference to Lyle's testimony about maybe he testified to a different date, or maybe he testified to a different location specifically. I can't remember. I don't remember the details of Lyle testifying about Big Five and about their journey to get the show eventually what was shotguns. But there was a reference to Lyle's testimony. There was there were a few points here that it seemed like he was getting him to concretely and unequivocally say what he remembered happened, and then asking the question of, on this date you went to this location and you saw this gun, and he says yes. Then and then saying that between March and August, right? March, April, May, June, July, August, 5 months later, that they had already for 5 months not been carrying handguns apparently. And culparistic, Big Five, it is a chain. It is a chain. So it's a very big chain. Oh, you're saying Big Five as a chain, or that particular? I think he's saying that particular Big Five in Santa Monica was no longer carrying handguns. Basically to say that, maybe he's lying about going to Santa Monica, going to the Big Five there. Maybe he's lying about, several different aspects here, but there's something here that is not correct about what he said. There's something here that's factually incorrect. Take that as you will. Is that a lie? Is that his memory being faulty? Did he mix what he saw at one Big Five versus another Big Five? That is also entirely possible. These things can happen when it's stress, when it's exhaustion, when it's a long period of time between the event and when you're recalling it. All of these things can come into play. Trauma also impacts memory. So we've talked. Memory is so malleable. He might in his brain right now be thinking, I 100% remember seeing those handguns. I remember seeing this and that, and we were on that date. We were in that store. I know that with a fact, and be totally sincere in his belief, but he might be completely mistaken by it. And it may be because his brain has merged him walking into the Big Five in Santa Monica and then him walking into the Big Five in San Diego. Either way, that is a bit of an issue for the defense. I'm not going to lie.
After you went to this Big Five in Santa Monica, what happened?
We left.
Where did you go?
We went down to San Diego.
Why did you go down to San Diego?
We were just driving and we didn't know what to do at that point.
At that point, you knew that you couldn't buy handguns. You had to wait 15 days, correct?
Yes.
Also, yeah, Mountain Princess 207. Are there 2 stores in the same town or on the line? We have Dunkin' in every town, 2 in some, and some are on the. Yes, yeah. There in 1993. There were definitely a ton of Big Five sporting goods between Santa Monica and San Diego. I know because I grew up in Orange County, which is in between those two. I can tell you the Big Five stores that I used to grow up going to because my family would go for camping gear and stuff like that. So there were plenty along the 5 freeway going all the way down 405 and then 5 freeway. Anyway, those are details that are not necessary. But yes, there are many Big Five sporting goods stores that existed in 1993. And are there any other questions? I think that's it. Okay.
And you decided to buy shotguns, didn't you?
No, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what we were going to be able to do.
At some point, how did you find out that you could buy rifles or shotguns rather than handguns?
There was a store that we went to that we decided to go into, and they had all these guns on the rack behind the man up there, and we were talking to the man about it.
Also, Care Bear, this is an interesting point. No witness has ever been presented to corroborate that they stopped selling handguns at Big Five. That's an interesting point too, because Kuriyama can't just be testifying to these things himself. Like if he says that, and then, without putting any sort of documentary evidence or like a newspaper clipping saying, there's some kind of a story on Big Five at Santa Monica has decided to no longer sell handguns, or the manager of Big Five comes in to testify to say we stopped selling handguns in March of 1989 or whatever. Yeah, if they don't present any kind of evidence, the best that they have is Kuriyama saying that to him. And then Erik maybe changing his testimony or just say, well, maybe I'm mistaken. Like that's the best that they can get from him if they don't present some evidence to back that up, because otherwise he can't testify to that at closing. He can't testify to Big Five stopping selling handguns in March of 1989, several months before they stepped in there, because he's the one that said that. Attorneys don't testify. So remember, evidence that is argued on in closing arguments is evidence that comes in through a witness or through, even like physical evidence or forensic evidence still comes in through a witness, never through an attorney. So that's a point that the power in that point for him in this moment is the jury being like, wait, what? But that power might lose its power. That moment might lose its power over time if the jury then later on is like, wait a minute, but like we haven't seen anything that says that. Like there's not been any evidence that actually tells us, like, do we know for a fact that they stopped selling handguns before? So anyway, I'm kind of going on a little bit longer. Debbie Fears on Cook, so they can't argue in closing that the store didn't sell handguns. Not at this point, because it's Kuriyama is the only one that has said that. No one has testified to that at this point in the trial. So if he did, that would draw an objection from the other side to say objection, facts, not an evidence, which is also a very powerful objection to make in closing arguments. Can you imagine an attorney is in the moment, they are like vigorously advocating and they're arguing to the jury about my side, blah, 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 blah. And then the other side stands up and with an objection and says, objection, facts, not an evidence. He's saying that Big Five stopped selling these handguns. No witness has testified to that point. There's been no evidence that has been admitted that suggests, no documentary evidence, no nothing that supports that point. So He can't argue that. So yeah. All right, let's continue.
Is it your understanding that you have to state that here that you weren't intending to hide your identity, that you were ready, willing, and able to buy these handguns that day, and that because you couldn't wait 15 days, you bought the shotguns?
Yeah.
Sustain.
You have testified that you had a valid driver's license, correct? Under a different name? It had your own picture on it with a false address?
I don't know if it was a driver's license. It was an ID, I believe, with my picture on it, definitely.
1 second, guys. I've got to pause it really quick. Talk amongst yourselves. Please don't go anywhere, unless you have to. I'll be right back in just a second. I've got to go and take care of one thing real quick. Okay, and we're back. All right. Okay, let's continue on.
With a false address,
I don't remember the address.
and it indicated you were 21 years old.
I'm not sure if it was 21 or over 21.
Do you recall the name on that ID?
Richard Stevens.
Do you still have that ID?
I don't know.
You have no idea?
I have no idea what I did with it after I got back from Israel.
So you had it during that period of time.
Yes.
And didn't you indicate that it was a DMV?
It was DMV.
Okay. So you didn't have to go to San Diego to...
So the question before was this a driver's license? And he said, I don't think it was a driver's license. I think it was just an ID. And Kriyama is his tone makes it sound like he's very skeptical and very like he's just calling him out as a liar, really. But the ID that they had, I'm not sure if this is just Kriyama playing I don't believe anything you say lawyering, or if he's not paying attention. To me, it feels like he's not paying attention because there was testimony about this before about, Erik getting this ID, going to the DMV by just like showing your your birth certificate or something like that, or it was a fake birth certificate, but it had his name on it, something like that. And then he would get his photo. No, not his name. Anyway, whatever. But there was testimony about this, and it involved taking a birth certificate to the DMV and then getting an ID.
To buy shotguns, you could have used your fake DMV right here in Beverly Hills, or you even came to Van Nuys to look at a gun shop. You could have done that, couldn't you?
We could have bought them at the.
Objection, argumentative.
Objection sustained, it's also a compound. Rephrase the question.
Now, sir, you've indicated that, or I believe your brother testified that once you understood that you couldn't buy the handguns at the Big Five store in Santa Monica, you didn't want to then say, okay, we'll settle on shotguns instead. You went to another store because you didn't want to stay at that store to make the purchase because it seemed kind of fishy, wouldn't it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Why don't you try to break it down a little bit?
Okay, now. You learned that you couldn't buy the handguns in Santa Monica, correct? Couldn't leave the store with your handguns that you selected, correct?
I learned that you couldn't buy handguns over the counter there. He said that there were guns behind him. There were rifles and there were shotguns behind him. He said, these you can carry with, you can just leave with today. But he said that handguns you can't.
So at that point, you decided not to buy the shotguns or the rifles that you could have bought and take them out that day. You decided it might look a little strange, so we better leave and go to another store.
No, actually, that's not what I was thinking at all. I hadn't even thought about shotguns or rifles or something that big because you couldn't carry it around with you. And I didn't understand exactly how I'd be able to protect myself if I didn't have guns.
Do you recall a testimony of your brother that he testified that you decided not to get the guns that you could carry out that day at that store because it would seem kind of strange. So you have to go to a different store.
Objection, Your Honor. Misstates the testimony of Menendez.
Rephrase the question, please.
Do you remember having a discussion with your brother that you wouldn't buy the guns that could be gotten on the very day that you purchased them? There's no waiting period. Did you have a discussion with your brother that you shouldn't buy the guns, the rifles or shotguns at that Santa Monica Big Five store?
No, I know we had that discussion down in San Diego at the first store that we went to.
So after you go into San Diego, or the Santa Monica Big Five store, find out you can't carry away your handguns that day, and you get back into the car,
Yes, sir.
right? You just decide to go. Let me ask you this. Who was driving at that point?
My brother.
At some point, did your brother get on the freeway?
At some point, not immediately. We weren't intending to go down to San Diego right away.
Sorry, I'll let him finish.
We weren't quite sure what we were going to be able to do at that point. And so eventually we decided to go down to San Diego to stay away from the house for the day.
When
Okay. Question: at some point, did he get on the freeway? It is possible to drive from Santa Monica down to San Diego without getting on the freeway. You would take the Pacific Coast Highway, which technically is a highway, but it's not a freeway. It's like at times a 2-lane road, one in each direction, and it's a lot of stoplights. So that would have been a very, very, very long trip to take only the PCH down between Santa Monica and San Diego. I have driven the PCH from like LAX ish, like around there down to maybe like, I don't know, like Newport Beach. And depending on the day and time, that can take a long time, very long time to get down there. So anyway, sorry, just kind of giving a little bit of color on the geography again. Also, Sandy, member for 14 months. Thank you so much for being a member for 14 months. Awesome. Amazing. Also, thanks for the member chat. Please don't forget to hit that like. Thank you so much. Thank you. And yeah, if you are enjoying this, and if you haven't done so already, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button. That would be awesome. Oh yeah. To be Freeze on Cook, we're back in a Californian sketch on SNL. Yeah. 100%. taking the 5 to the 405 down to the PCH. It is a web of streets and highways and freeways and things. And of course, we have fun names for all of them.
When was that decision made?
At some point when we were driving around,
Where did you drive after you left the Big Five store in Santa Monica?
we drove in Santa Monica. We may have drove to the beach. I don't remember, but we weren't in Santa Monica. We were right across from the 405. That may be Santa Monica. We were driving right into Santa Monica. And so at that point, we decided to turn around and just head down to San Diego.
You just decided San Diego sounds like a good place to buy these guns. Let's go down there.
No, that's not at all what happened.
And I also will say that the idea that they would just go for a drive to San Diego, I know we've talked about this before, but the idea that they would just decide to go for a drive down to San Diego from Los Angeles, it's about 2 hours without traffic, depending on which part of San Diego and which part of Los Angeles you start and end from. But 2-3 hours, maybe 4 with a lot of traffic. That's about how long that could take. But I don't know. I mean, my origin story with Mr. Bites involves like just casually taking a drive from Newport Beach down to Laguna Beach and then back up to Santa Monica and just kind of seeing where we decided that we wanted to go and have conversation and stuff like that. So like I have 100% gone on casual drives up and down. I mean, there's pretty coastline to go and see as you're driving and talking, especially if you're having, I mean, in my case, it wasn't a stressful conversation, but like, if you're talking about things that are stressful, driving down the Pacific Ocean is a nice way to make it a little bit less stressful. So like I can totally see this happening and that not being a part of like some plot to like premeditatively kill their parents.
So you just kind of went with the flow of the traffic and you ended up in San Diego.
No, at that point we were intending to go down to San Diego.
And you weren't intending to go down there so that you could hide the fact that you were buying these guns and use a false identification so the police wouldn't be able to trace those guns to you and your brother.
No, sir. We used my friend's brother's ID. That was definitely not our purpose.
You used your friend's brother's ID.
Yes.
And whose ID is that?
Donovan Goodrow.
So he said friend's brothers. He meant brother's friend's ID.
And you had your own ID in your own face anyway, with a different name, Stevenson, I believe you said. Stevens. You had that ID that you could have used too.
I could have used that. There's no
But it had
question.
your picture on it, so you didn't want that connection to those guns. Isn't that right?
No, I could have used the gun. I mean, I could have used that ID, and it probably would have been better. And if I had known that you would needed ID to buy guns, I would have brought that, because that way I definitely would have been able to buy them, because I was the picture on the ID. When going into the Big Five in San Diego, I was a little worried that the lady might say, "This isn't you on the ID." Because Donovan looks like me, but he isn't me.
And what are you saying? That you didn't have your ID with you that day?
The Richard Stevens?
Right.
No, I didn't carry around that in my wallet.
But you did carry Donovan Goodrow's in your wallet?
Yes, Donovan Goodrow was an ID that I just used if I was out, needed to go into a nightclub. I had two, so I kept one in my wallet, and I kept the real one in my bedroom.
So you would use the one that doesn't look like you most of the time, so that if someone looked at your ID, they'd say, "Wait a minute, this doesn't look like you. This is Donovan Goodrow's face. This is not Erik Menendez's face."
No, I would
Overall,
I
right?
would use the Richard Stevens most of the time. If I knew, usually if I was going out to a nightclub or something, I knew I was going out there, so I'd go and I'd get the ID and I'd carry it there. But I lost my wallet several months before, and I didn't want to lose this ID, so I didn't want to carry it around
Which
my
ID?
wallet. The Richard Stevens.
So you would carry the other fake ID,
Yeah,
and that would be with you all the time.
that'd be with me all the time.
Okay, so you had your fake DMV under Stevens, the name of Stevens, with your picture on it. You had Donovan Gaudreau's driver's license, and you had your own driver's license.
No, I did not have my driver's license.
What happened to that?
I lost it when I lost my wallet.
When did you lose your wallet?
Many months before that spring.
Before in the spring? Let me ask you this. In May of 1989, I believe your brother had testified that he gave you the Donovan Gaudreau license because you had lost yours.
Yes.
So by May, you had already lost your license?
No, he didn't give it to me because I had lost mine. He had given it to me because I had lost my Timmy Anderson ID. He was my cousin of mine, Timmy Anderson, was over 21, and when I lost my wallet, I lost that ID. And so I wanted one to carry around in my wallet just in case I lost my wallet again.
Okay, let's get this straight. You had a fake ID of your cousin, Timmy Anderson.
Yes,
You had a fake ID, Donovan Gaudreau.
not at the same time.
Okay. You had a fake ID of this Mr. Stevens, but with your face on it.
Yes,
And you had your own license.
not all at the same time though.
Okay. When did you get the Timmy Anderson license?
I had that for a while. I don't remember when I got it.
Does that Timmy Anderson license have your face on it?
No, Timmy Anderson is a real person. Richard Stevens is not a real person. And so I just used his ID.
Now, Timmy Anderson, what state was that? Is it DMV type of?
It was a real license. It was his license from Illinois.
From Illinois. And he just gave it to you?
Actually gave it to my brother before my brother had turned 21, I believe. I'm not really sure. And then Lyle gave it to me.
Okay, so when was it that you lost your real license, you, and with all your correct identification on it?
Sometime that spring, I don't remember. I know that in July and in June, when I had gotten some tickets, I didn't have it because I had lost it.
So by at least June, you didn't have your license anymore.
No, definitely not.
Do you recall any time before that you didn't have your license?
I usually did not have my license. Most of my life, if you look back over the tickets that I've gotten, I just did not have my license.
Okay, there were times when you had your license, though.
Very infrequently, but I guess there were times, yes.
So sometimes you would actually have your driver's license, your real driver's license, and you'd maybe leave it at home and get a ticket, and you wouldn't have it in your possession.
No, I almost always carried it around in my wallet.
Your real license.
Yes.
Do you recall where it was that you first realized you didn't have your real license? Or did it matter since you had all these fake licenses to go by?
Your Honor, I'm going to object before the question. Also
Argumentative.
Overall,
I didn't use fake licenses when I got a ticket. I didn't have any fake licenses. I had my brother's friend's license. I used to have my cousin's license, and I had this fake DMV ID. When I lost my license, I believe it was when I lost my wallet, but I'm not sure.
When was that? When do you recall first realizing, oh, I don't have my real license?
When do I recall it? When? And what point are you
At what
asking?
point did you look and say, I don't have my license, where's my wallet?
My license wasn't a big concern to me. I was 18 at the time and I couldn't use my license with anything. So it didn't matter whether I had it or I didn't have it unless I got a traffic ticket. So I really didn't care.
So you didn't really carry it around with you?
No, it wasn't a big concern to me.
But at some point you did lose it, is that right? That's your
Yes.
testimony? Sometime, well, it was before June, so it was probably like May or earlier than May, maybe, of 89?
I have to assume so since I didn't have it when I got a ticket in June. I believe I lost it that spring.
Now, you say that you got a ticket in June,
Yes.
is that right?
Yes.
And you didn't have your license?
No, I did not.
Did you get cited for not having a license with you in
Yeah,
June?
yes, I did.
And is that Vehicle Code Section 12 or 12951?
I don't know.
That's a good answer, because reasonably, how could anyone expect a lay witness to be able to testify as to the exact criminal code that, driving without a license falls under? Come on, man. Like that's I feel like that's a question that is aimed just to make him feel incompetent or uncomfortable, or like one of those things. No one would have expected him to know, because he's clearly, like, he's not a lawyer, he's not a police officer. Even as a lawyer, like, it's entirely possible to, like, get these different criminal codes mixed up if you're not regularly practicing criminal law day in and day out. Anyway, I'll step off my soapbox.
Yeah. And how do you recall that particular ticket that you got in June of 1989?
I saw it up here.
Okay, are you sure that was June of 1989?
Yes.
And did it say right on the ticket that you didn't have your license with you?
The officer writes it on the ticket.
Okay, so every time you have gotten ticketed by a police officer and you didn't have your license, you would get cited for not having your license, wouldn't you?
No.
You wouldn't.
No. Some officers would give me a break. If I'd run 2 stop signs and was speeding, I guess he just wanted to give me a break and not cite me for not having my license, or my windows were tinted and didn't cite me for that. Depended on the officer, I guess.
Okay, so there's sometimes that you got stopped that you didn't get cited, even though you couldn't present the officer with a license. He said, nah, forget it.
Yes.
When did that happen?
When the date?
Do you recall?
I know it happened once when I was living in Calabasas. I don't recall the date.
Do you recall, though, that ever happened to you while you were living in Beverly Hills?
I don't remember.
Would this be an appropriate time to take a break, Sharon?
All right, we'll take a recess. We'll resume at 10 minutes after the hour. Don't discuss this
Okay,
matter with
magical
anyone.
10
Don't
minutes.
form any final opinions about it, and we'll resume at 10 minutes after the hour.
Mr.
Told you,
Menendez,
magical 10
after you went to the Santa Monica Big Five store, you indicated that you then went to, the Santa Monica Beach?
No. We didn't quite know what to do at that point. We didn't want to go home, and we just wanted to stay out for the rest of the day, so we decided to head down to San Diego.
Why is it that you didn't want to go home, sir?
We just didn't want to be around the house that day. We didn't know what my mother or my dad were up to. We just wanted to stay out for the day.
So you left fairly early in the morning, correct?
I guess.
Well, you indicated that you got up and you hit some balls that morning, 7 to 8 o'clock. And then,
No.
no? Okay, why don't you tell us what happened?
I was hitting balls somewhere between 8 and 9. I'm not exactly positive, somewhere around there. And we left soon after.
So you left the Beverly Hills home soon after 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, I would think so. Right around there.
Got to the Santa Monica Big Five store at what time?
9:30, 10, maybe somewhere around there.
And do you know what time they open up?
I have no idea.
Okay. But they were open when you were there. I mean, when you got there, you didn't have to wait around for them.
No, they were definitely open because
About how much time did you actually spend at the Big Five store?
about 15 minutes. I remember because I remember looking at the guns, and the guy said to me, once he said to me that you couldn't purchase guns over the counter, then we left immediately. So it could not have been more than 10 to 15 minutes.
And that was after you had looked at these guns, these handguns.
Yes, in
Now-
Last case.
Where did you go from there?
We just drove around for a bit.
Did you-
We were right next to the 405, or a street or two away from the 405. So we just headed in that direction toward Santa Monica. If that isn't Santa Monica, I don't know where the boundary is. And we just drove right around there, and then we decided to head toward the freeway and go down to San Diego.
Which street did you go down toward Santa Monica, or west? Did you actually go west after going to the Big Five store?
West is
Towards the beach?
toward the beach. We were very close to the 405, and I believe it was Santa Monica, so Santa Monica Street. So I guess we just continued going down Santa Monica Street.
Could it have been Wilshire? One of the big streets?
One of the big streets.
And did you head west?
Yeah, that's the direction toward.
Did you tell your brother where to go?
No.
So he was just driving.
Yes.
Were you looking for other gun stores?
No, at that point we knew that we couldn't buy handguns, so we didn't know what to do. We didn't think we'd be able to get any gun whatsoever.
At some point, did you go to the beach that day?
No.
Did you go to the Santa Monica Pier?
No, we didn't leave the car in Santa Monica.
Except for when you went to the Big Five store.
Well, we went to another store before that.
Before what?
Before the store in San Diego, we had gone to another store before then.
Okay. How much later did you go to that second store?
After we got down to San Diego, 2 hours, however long it takes to get down there.
Okay, let's take it back before you started to head down to San Diego. You were in the Santa Monica area, correct?
Yes.
And you were driving around.
Yes.
Where were you going?
We weren't going any place in particular. We were sort of bewildered. We didn't know what to do. So we just sort of drove around talking. Should we go home? Should we stay out? What can we do? At that point, we just decided to get away for the day and just head down to San Diego. Lyle had been there several times.
So that's another point that makes it reasonable to believe that they just went for a drive to San Diego, is because they were trying to spend time out of the house as well. That's something that I had forgotten about, but that, they were saying that they were trying not to be at home together at the same time throughout the day. So either Lyle would be there or Erik would be there. And usually it was Lyle being there, and Erik would just come home at the end of the day. But so this also makes sense with that bit of context too, is that they're like, we're just trying to spend time outside of the house and away from our parents doing stuff. Taking a drive down to San Diego is a good way to fill 4 hours of time pretty easily.
When you left that morning, you actually saw your brother come to the tennis court, correct?
Yes.
And you left directly from the tennis court. Well, actually, you said that you went and got your money.
I went upstairs to get my wallet.
Did you see anybody in the house, the main house?
No, I didn't see my mother.
Did your brother ever come into the main house when you went in to get your money?
I have no idea.
Did you ever see him in the main house?
I remember pulling out of the driveway with him, so that's about it.
So when you entered the main house, you didn't see him, and you came out of the house and you saw your brother then.
Yeah, I don't know if he went into the main house.
Did you ever hear any discussion between your parents that morning inside the main house?
No,
Didn't see your parents at all in the main
I
house?
didn't see anyone in the main house.
So you left, went to the Big Five, and you're driving around in Santa Monica for a while. Then what happened?
And then we decided to head down towards San Diego.
Now, who made that decision?
Lyle did.
And where were you when that decision was made?
Exactly the street.
Yes. Do you recall approximately where you were?
I don't remember. I know at one point we were on Ocean Avenue.
That's right up close to the beach.
That's close to the beach. That's right in Santa Monica. I don't remember where we made the decision.
Also, I there's at least, let's see here. Here's a couple questions. Culperistic said, if you aren't 100% sure what he said, you should say you don't recall, right? Well, yeah, you don't want to speculate. You never want to be speculating on the stand. If you can say that there are certain pieces that you do recall, you can testify to that, but you don't want to be filling in the gaps by what sounds most reasonable or what you think probably happened. You definitely don't want to do that. In those kinds of instances, it's definitely best to just say, I don't recall. I simply don't recall. Daniel Rosell says, just because I'm unsure and not from the US, reason for wait time for handguns, i.e. pistols, is since they are usually much easier to conceal. Yes. Yes, that's why. And also keep in mind that the laws in California about purchasing a gun in 1993 are almost 100% chance of being different today. Probably much more restrictive. I say probably because I've never tried to purchase a gun or purchase ammunition or anything anywhere, let alone in California. So I don't know specifically what the laws are in California as to how easy or difficult it is to buy a gun. Something tells me in California, it's a bit more difficult than in other states. So yeah, so those what they are testifying about might be different than what it is today. Mountain Princess 207 question, what do the emojis on the right side do? The one that looks like a heart. So yeah, so those everyone that's watching and has the chat up can see those kind of floating up, those little like bubbling up. It's just a way of emoting, I guess, of responding to the live stream. I think it does help with engagement. I mean, how could it not, right? Just like, hitting the like button helps engagement. It helps the YouTube algorithm stuff. So by all means, fully use that button. All right, let's continue.
At some point, you had a discussion and you were wondering what you were going to do that day.
Yes.
And whose idea was it to go to San Diego?
I believe it was my brother's. I mean, I could be mistaken. I don't know. I mean, we went down and around Santa Monica. At some point, we just decided to head down towards San Diego because Lyle had been there many times.
Yeah, I think he indicated that he was familiar with the area.
I don't know if he was familiar.
Tournament?
Yes, he had been there several times.
Were there any tennis tournaments that either you or your brother participated in the Valley area or the Beverly Hills area?
I used to live in the Valley, so.
Were there tennis
Yes.
tournaments there?
Mm-hmm.
So you were familiar with the Valley as well?
Yes.
And you could have easily gone to gun stores in the Valley?
Sure.
Do you know what time it was when you first started to head toward San Diego?
No, I don't.
You have any idea at all?
In order to have an idea, I'd have to be right on the idea of when we headed toward the gun store or the sporting goods store. So it was soon after that, maybe 10 to 20 minutes after we had left the sporting goods store.
So about perhaps 10, 20 in the morning, you decided to go to San Diego?
Perhaps.
And did you have to gas up that day?
I do not remember at all if we had to gas up.
Do you remember if you stopped for lunch at any place on the way down to San Diego?
On the way down, I know we ate in San Diego. I don't remember stopping on the way down, no.
Did you have lunch in San Diego?
Yes.
So you actually went to San Diego sometime in the mid-morning. You headed down to San Diego.
Yes, before noon, I think. I'm
And
pretty sure before noon.
It took how long to get there?
I don't know. I'm not real good at these times, but maybe 2 hours.
once you got down to San Diego, would you explain for the juries what you and your brother did?
At that point, we had decided to check and see if we could get these other guns. We wanted to get something, and so we headed toward a gun store. I think I may have even looked up the gun store in the phone book to see what gun store there was around there. And we headed toward it was not a sporting goods store. I believe it was just a gun store. And at that point, we asked if we could take a look at the rifles and the shotguns
Do you recall where this was?
in San Diego.
Where in San Diego?
It was near the place where we bought the other guns.
And you went into that gun store
Yes.
and you discussed with the clerk the purchase of a shotgun?
Yeah, I believe it was an older man behind the counter. It was a wooden place, similar like this. It was wooden, and he had racks of guns behind it. And he took one of the guns down and was showing it to us a little.
You at that point didn't know anything about guns.
And I knew very little.
So did he show you a Mossberg shotgun?
I don't know what the name of the gun was.
But in any event, he showed you a shotgun?
Yes.
And was your brother right up there with you?
Yes, he was next to me.
Did you discuss the shotgun?
I believe so.
What was the discussion?
The discussion was how it worked. I remember he saying once something to do when a burglar comes to your house and why these are best for home protection because you can make a noise with it or something and it'll just scare the burglar off. Something to that extent.
Was it a pump shotgun?
Yes, it was.
And you ended up getting two pump shotguns, correct?
Yeah, we ended up, yes.
Was the pump shotgun that was shown to you at this earlier store the same model as what you ended up buying?
I don't remember.
When you went to the second store, did you simply look at the shotgun, a similar shotgun to what you had seen in the earlier store and say, I want two of those?
No.
Sorry about that. 1 second. My earbuds switched over to the other device because I'm turning it on. Okay. Here we are. We have Indie Chat back. And good. Okay. And we're back set up again. All right. Everything is restored finally. Okay. Sorry. Let's continue.
You actually had to discuss the shotguns at the Big Five in San Diego as well, is that right?
Yes.
You discussed that with the female clerk?
Yeah, it was a female clerk.
And did she explain to you how the shotgun worked?
Yeah, she took it apart. It came in she took out a box that had white styrofoam in it, and she took it apart. She took apart a section of it and just showed us how it worked. And I believe there was even a white diagram sheet.
Did she show you how to pull out the plug?
She took out the plug.
She took out the plug
Yes.
of one gun.
I don't remember. I remember her showing it to me.
Okay, what did she do exactly? Do you recall how she did that?
Yeah, there was a twist, something that you had to twist in the back. She says you put in extra 2 shells or something like that if you take out the plug, and it was something in that order. And so she twisted it off. She showed us, and we said that's fine.
When she twisted it off, did she actually pull the plug out so that you could see it?
I believe so. I believe she took it off. I know I didn't take off the plug, so I remember discussing mechanisms of the gun with her. So I assumed that we had to, she had to have actually pulled it out.
This all feels like detail that is not necessary. It feels entirely superfluous. This is just fluff. And I would be very surprised if the jury was actually paying attention in this moment.
I remember her taking it out because I remember it was right below where the barrel was.
What did that look like?
It was black.
And how long and what shape was it?
I don't remember.
Was it cylindrical?
I believe so.
So she pulled it out of one gun, is that right?
She was showing us one gun, so yeah, I guess, yes.
Now, was that one of the two guns that you eventually purchased?
I don't remember.
You ended up buying two guns in any event.
Yes.
And did the two of you pull out the plugs to your shotguns?
I definitely did not.
You didn't have to do that to yours.
No, I wasn't even sure exactly how it worked. I know you twisted off something on the bottom and there was some sort of a plug, but I'm not even completely sure what it looked like.
What time was it that you arrived at that San Diego Big Five store?
4 or 5, maybe 6 at the latest.
It took about 2.5 or 3 hours to get to San Diego. That was your testimony, correct?
Somewhere between that, maybe 2.5 hours.
And you left about, say, 10:20 in the morning? Is that about right?
Yeah, I guess.
So you arrived between 1 and 1:30 in the afternoon?
Yes.
And you went to this gun store, the first one,
Yes.
and you stayed for a while the man was showing you different shotguns.
Yes.
And how long were you there?
Not very long. 10, 15 minutes, maybe slightly longer than that, because in Santa Monica he never actually took anything out of the glass case, so it was a little bit longer than that, maybe 20 minutes.
Now, why is it that you didn't buy any guns at the first store?
Because once he asked us, or either asked us or he told us that we needed an ID, we needed to fill out some forms, I think something like that. But I knew that I needed my ID. I didn't have my driver's license. So Lyle and I discussed it and we said, we better not do it here. It's suspicious.
You knew you didn't want to be connected to the guns that you purchased at that point.
No, not at all. We wanted to be able to get the guns. And if I suddenly, it looked really weird when he said, you need an ID. And I said to Lyle, I need to talk to you. And then we sort of went away from the counter and talked. And I told Lyle, I don't have my driver's license. And this is what I have. We didn't want to go back and say here because we figured he might realize that person wasn't me. So we just decided to go eat and do it someplace else.
Now, your brother Lyle had a driver's license, didn't he?
Not with him, no.
He didn't have a license with him either?
I believe his license was suspended.
That was his California license?
Yes,
Didn't he have a New Jersey license?
I guess.
In fact, did you also have a New Jersey license?
No, I did not.
You did not.
I did not.
Did you ever have a New Jersey license?
Never.
So you left that gun store. Did you go directly to the Big Five from there?
No, I believe it was a Big Boy that we ate at. It's one of those big boy restaurants or Denny's or something like that. We stayed there for a while and just talked. We were trying to waste up the day and spend up the day. So we just ate.
So you ate at the Big Boy, had lunch there,
Yes.
and then after you finished, then you went to the Big Five in San
It
Diego.
was after that. I don't know if it was immediately after that, but it was after that, because I remember I was practicing Donovan's signature and thinking that, geez, I hope it's not too big of a deal to buy this, and she doesn't have to go through all kinds of a checking process like the guy said you had to do with the handguns. So I just was practicing.
Now you got the Donovan Gaudreau license about May of 1989, correct?
When I was back in New Jersey, it was May, I suppose. Yes.
And you had used his license before.
Yes.
Had you ever signed anything using his license?
No.
What did you use his license for?
Just to get into a nightclub. I used to dance, and so I used to get into the nightclub to dance.
And did you use his license pretty often during those 3 months?
No. Usually I knew specifically when I was going to go use it, so I just grabbed the one from my house, the one that had my picture on it.
After the Big Boy, you then went to the Big Five, correct?
Sometime after that, yes.
Well, was that the next stop that you guys had on this journey?
I don't remember.
So you don't recall whether or not you went anywhere in between Big Boy and Big Five?
Exactly.
You recall sometime, though, at 4 or 5, I believe you indicated, you got to the Big Five store.
Sometime around there.
And you both entered the store.
Yes.
And what happened?
And we went up to the counter. It was to the right, like the other store in Santa Monica. You went through the doors and you went up. The counter was toward the right on the other wall. And we just started looking at the different guns there. And we asked the lady about them and what the difference between, I don't know if she had different types or she had different types, but different, I don't know what they call it in guns, sizes and so we're taking a look at one and she was showing us it.
The two of you were together.
Yes.
And the lady that came in to testify is the one that was showing the two of you?
I didn't recognize her, but if that was her, then that was her. I know it was a lady.
And she showed the two of you the shotguns.
Yes.
And were you together at all those times?
At the time she was showing us the gun, I know we were together. Yes.
And you decided after some discussion to buy a particular shotgun?
After some discussion with the lady?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't know what kind of shotgun you wanted as you entered the Big Five store?
No, I had no idea.
When you decided that you wanted the particular shotguns that you ended up purchasing, the Mossberg shotguns, was your brother right next to you?
When I purchased them, no.
Yes. So after you decided that you're going to buy this type of shotgun, is that when your brother left your side?
No. With this lady, it was a little bit of a longer process because I had to fill out some forms. And while I was doing that, Lyle went off and did something. It took a little while, but I remember, I don't know if they let me carry these guns in the box to the cash register. I don't know if they gave them to me there or the lady came over and gave it to me, but I know I was at the cash register there alone.
Did you see the lady go and get a second box containing the shotgun after you saw her pull the plug or demonstrate how to pull the plug of the one shotgun that she demonstrated for you?
I don't remember. I know on the one gun, she showed us how to put the most ammunition you can put in the gun. Whether she brought another gun, I guess if I carried the gun to the counter, to the cash register, then she would have had to, but I don't remember.
Your brother was there when she demonstrated how to pull out the plug to the shotgun.
Yes.
So he saw how to do that.
Yes.
Okay, let me answer a few questions here real quick. Okay, here. Nico Kiski says, question. Most of the, and I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Most of the other male witnesses have worn suits. Do you think the defense intentionally had Lyle and Erik wear more casual clothes? I think that their clothing is definitely intentional. Casual is maybe not so much the look that they were going for as younger. So they are, I think that if they were wearing business suits, especially during the entirety of the trial, it may have made them look more like men who are in professional work, who go to, go to their job every day, like a 9 to 5 kind of thing. When, although they were both adults when they killed their parents, they were in a definite, I mean, I would say that they were in a state of arrested development for sure. They were in so many ways not prepared for adult life. So them wearing these kinds of clothes is much softer. It is much more youthful looking. And that, I think, for sure is a very, very intentional move that they made. When it comes to these high profile cases, the attorneys are absolutely thinking about the image that they are projecting, that their clients are projecting to the jury through their clothing, through their body posture, through the things that they are doing or not doing in the courtroom. So very, very good question. Y'all know I love talking about courtroom fashion. And we haven't really talked about it much in this case. So thank you so much for asking that. It has been very interesting to, I mean, we've talked about courtroom fashion, but we've talked about it like 90s fashion, but yeah. Kat Love Dreaming Peach says, question, did they both get convicted of 2 murders in the second trial? Yes. Carolyn V, isn't it hearsay to ask if his brother had his license? No, it's not hearsay, because remember that it comes down to the definition of hearsay. The definition is an out-of-court statement offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So whether or not someone, okay, hang on a second. Asking about someone saying something in the past, like while they're driving down to San Diego, for example, could potentially be hearsay because it's an out-of-court statement. But whether someone had their license on them, or had a document, a card that purports to be a license, is not necessarily hearsay. Whether or not, that license was, or whether or not that card was in fact a license could potentially be a question about hearsay, because it is a document. A document is an out-of-court statement. But you have to remember that the full definition is offered to prove the matter asserted. So, did Lyle have his license on him while he was driving is not asking about, whether or not, they so sorry, let me go back for a second. So they're asking that question not because they actually care whether or not Lyle had his license on him, but because that's not what he's on trial for here, right? So it's more about whether or not they had, I guess they do kind of care, whether or not he had a license on him for various reasons, because of the guns. But the main point is, even aside from that, it's not offered for whether or not, it doesn't actually matter all that much whether or not he actually had a valid license. It's whether or not he had a document that purports itself to be a license. So there's layers to that. Anyway, I'm kind of overcomplicating things, but long story short, it's not hearsay to ask if his brother had his license, because I mean it could be a question that draws speculation. He may not have known whether or not he had his license, because maybe it was in a wallet somewhere or something like that. But yes, culparistic, it goes to Lyle's understanding of the situation and not whether it's actually true or not. That's exactly it. Okay, let's continue on.
After she pulled this plug out of the shotgun, did she simply leave the plug out, or did she put it back in?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Did she put the gun back into its box, the original box?
I believe so, because I can't imagine they would have let me walk out of the gun store with 2 guns in my hand and not in a box. So I assume I had to have carried out in a box.
So is it your recollection that the guns, one of them may have had the plug pulled, but the other one, you didn't see anybody pull that plug, is that right?
I know I didn't pull the plug in the gun that I had. Whether in Lyle's gun the plug was pulled or not, I have no idea.
So you made the purchase of the 2 shotguns,
Yes,
correct? About between 4 and 5 p.m.
somewhere around there.
And then what did you do?
And then it was getting late. We decided to head toward back to LA at sometime right around there.
This was a Friday night. What about 5 o'clock?
I guess it was 5 o'clock. I can't remember the exact
I'm
time.
going to expect you to strike the answer of speculation.
Roll.
At some point in that afternoon, you started to drive back toward Los Angeles.
Yes,
Heavy traffic.
I don't remember.
Lyle was, your brother was still driving at this time.
Yes,
Did you just drive straight to your house from there?
I don't remember. I remember pulling up at the house at night. So maybe. I guess it would depend on what time I left the store.
But you don't recall going to any other location between the time that you went to the Big 5 store in San Diego and arriving home in Beverly Hills.
No, I don't recall that.
At some point after arriving, did either of you do anything with those shotguns?
Yeah, I took him up to my room.
You took both
No,
shotguns?
mine.
Did you know at that time that your brother had purchased ammunition?
Yes, I had loaded 2 shells in my gun on the way up. Back to Los Angeles.
And did you see your brother do likewise?
He was driving. I didn't see it.
So while your brother was driving, you took the shotgun out of the box and loaded it.
Yes,
Were you in the back seat or the front seat?
the front seat.
Okay. Did you at any time that night see your brother load his gun also?
No, I did not.
When you got home, what did you do?
We knocked on the door. The door was locked.
What happened?
My mom came down and opened it,
Then what happened?
and she told us that the fishing boat trip was changed from the morning to the late afternoon or afternoon.
That Friday night?
That Friday night, she said that, yes.
Did she say, gee whiz, Eric, why do you have that gun in your hand?
No, I didn't have the gun in my hand at that time. It was after that conversation that we realized something was going on with the fishing boat, that it all of a sudden was changed the night before and after this Thursday blow up. So I went back out and talked to Lyle. And it's after that I went up and brought the shotgun up.
You had already thought that you were going to be killed before that. That's why you bought the shotguns, correct?
Yeah, we believed my parents were up to something, and in case they were, I wanted to have the gun.
Didn't you testify that when you arrived at your home that night that you took your shotgun to your room?
Yes, I did.
But you then testified that you knocked on the door because the door was locked and your mother came to the door, correct?
I did both. I first knocked on the door to get into the house because the door was locked. And after the conversation with my mom, Lyle and I then went back outside.
And at that time, your gun was already loaded.
Yes,
And did you have it in the back seat or in the trunk or where?
I don't remember. I'm sure I had it under some clothes after I loaded it.
Now, your Escort is a hatchback or was a hatchback.
Yes,
And does it have the kind of cover that rises as the hatch rises?
it had the cover because eventually I got too many clothes in the car that I had to remove the cover. because the cover was blocking it.
The pile of clothes was too high for the cover to be on the back, attached to the back?
Yes.
So when you went out after talking to your mother that Friday night upon returning from San Diego, you then directly went back outside and got your shotgun.
No, I had a conversation with Lyle first.
Where was he?
He was with me.
No, but you had a conversation with your mother. Where did you have a conversation with your brother?
Outside after we had talked to my mother.
So you and your brother then went to the front door. Your mother came to the door? Is that
Yes,
right?
the door was locked.
And did both of you have a conversation with your mother?
Yes,
You were standing there at the front door.
right inside the foyer. She said, and that's when she said the fishing boat trip was changed.
Okay. After she gave you that information, what did you do?
We went back outside to the car.
And where did she go?
She went back up to her room, I guess. The foyer was dark.
No lights on?
No, there were no lights on at the time.
So she came out of darkness to...
No, she came out of her room
How do you know that?
because I remember seeing the light down the hallway of the room in her
Her room.
bedroom.
Her room is upstairs, correct?
Yes.
And you saw that from the front door?
It isn't like a normal house. The foyer is a 2-story foyer, and there's a balcony, and the bedroom is right behind the balcony.
So you rang the doorbell,
I guess we rang the doorbell, yes.
and you see your mother coming down the stairs?
I don't remember. I just remember talking to her in the foyer and knowing that the light was on in her bedroom because the door was open.
And you... Your father was home that day as well, right? That night.
I had assumed that he was home. I don't remember now.
Did you see him anytime Friday?
I never saw him on Friday.
Did you or Lyle make any calls back home during that Friday excursion?
I don't know.
You don't know if you did or not?
No, I don't remember doing so.
Now, what was the reason why you didn't want to go back to the Beverly Hills house on Friday?
Because we just didn't want to be around my parents. If my dad went to work, then that was great. But my mom was home and we didn't know what my dad was up to. We just wanted to stay away and talk and not be at the house.
Did you know that your father had gone to work on Friday?
I didn't know what my father had done.
You didn't know because you never talked to him that day?
I did not talk to him that day.
Never saw your parents until you got home from San Diego?
I never saw my mom until I got home from San Diego.
Did you hear your brother testify that he knew that your dad, your father, had gone to work that day and that upset him?
If he testified to it, then he knew that. I had no idea.
How would he have known that if he was with you all that time?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
It's a good place to break your own.
All right, this is an hour of recess until 1:30. Don't discuss this matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it. We'll resume at 1:30. Kyle, we have both juries present and all other participants in the trial as well. One of the attorneys, ladies and gentlemen, has had a sudden medical emergency in the family, and the attorney has to take care of it. So, unfortunately, and it's one of those things that does happen, as we've seen during the trial, that things that we cannot anticipate do occur and occasionally interfere with the continuous progress of the trial. But we have to deal with it as it occurs, and it's occurred now. So I want to accommodate that need and permit the counsel to take care of the situation. So what I'm going to do is, in a moment, recess the proceedings for the balance of the day and the balance of the week. And
Okay. So anyway, we that's more than we needed for that. But basically, that's the end of this segment. There's a couple questions. Let me get these real quick. Cat Love Dreaming Peach says, question, is the questioning so long and boring to just throw Lyle? I know you meant Erik. off or to try to catch him in a lie. I think I don't know exactly what he's going for here. It's either to catch him in a lie or to sort of wear him down over time, because sitting on cross-examination for hours and hours and hours is hard. You can make a mistake at some point. It's one of the reasons why criminal defendants have to think long and hard before agreeing to testify on the stand. It has to be a situation where there is some material benefit to them to testify, because it's very risky. So, I'm not sure, but the problem with trying to catch him in a lie is that, it's like what I say in these trials is, it's similar to the idea that if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it actually make a sound? If if Kuriyama gets a gotcha out of Erik Menendez, but the jury's not paying attention, is that really an evidence? Like, it technically is. Yes, it's on the record, but like, jury doesn't hear it, jury won't consider it. So that's why, like, these kind of like moments where they're scoring points, sometimes it's not worth it to be going on for hours and hours on end if the jury's not able to pay attention. Tish, good question here. Has the prosecution made any scores yet this entire cross-examination? Has he proven any relevant points, etc.? I think that the one point that he scored earlier on was potentially about the date at which the Big Five in Santa Monica stopped selling handguns. But of course, it wasn't a full impeachment though, because he didn't introduce anything to concretely show that they stopped selling handguns at that point. And as Care Bear in the chat mentioned, that there's no point in the trial when they introduce a rebuttal witness to testify to that. So it is a point for sure, because it may have made an impression on the jury. Absolutely. But in terms of like, can he argue that at closing? No, because it at this point in time, it's not evidence. It's him claiming as an attorney, but he's not a witness. So what he says is not evidence. So yeah. All right. So that does it for us for today. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of this long and winding road of the Menendez trial and Menendez Mondays in our classic trial series. I have absolutely enjoyed this entire series with you guys, and this was episode 47 now for us. Yeah, 47. Can you imagine? I mean, we are almost to episode 50. That's crazy. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everybody in the chat, everyone on replay, all the lurkers, of course, that are watching maybe while working or studying or doing other stuff, household chores. And there's Indie Bear. There you go. And of course, as always, thank you to the mods for being here to always usher in conversation and make sure that the conversation, that people can agree or disagree, and do so vigorously with facts and not with ad hominem attacks. So I appreciate all of you guys. And thanks to the folks that purchased memberships today or gifted memberships for other folks. I appreciate every single one of you so much. So keep an eye out for more content this week. And also for those of you that are members, members only live stream on Friday. We've got it scheduled same time as always, 10 a.m. East Coast time. So I think that's it for me. All right. You guys have a wonderful rest of your Monday, whatever is left of it, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week.